chemically brought down on its knees. With every breath that I breathe, clenched fists and gritting teeth. Tonight the energy flowing in me is waiting for release. Thunder beneath my feet, a sight you won't believe. Until the dawn, the darkness falls, and I lose control. I feel it in my bones, a spark to lead us through the shadows. Can I fight the way before me? It's coursing through my soul, about to guide us through the sorrow. Can I calm this storm inside me? This electricity, a part of me that's under pressure. Charged up, my fuse igniting, a sight you wanna see. I'm outside, pointing to the sky, gonna make the earth shake, 'cause you can't contain me. Voltage burst through the black of my eyes, put my finger on the trigger and I'll shock you, baby. Against the odds, until the dawn, the darkness falls, and I lose control. I feel it in my bones, a spark to lead us through the shadows. Can I fight the way before me? It's coursing through my soul, about to guide us through the sorrow. Can I calm this storm inside me? I feel it in my bones, a spark to lead us through the shadows. Can I fight the
The Blue Otter League Gold Division for week number 7 of competition. This is the very end of the road for the regular season, and Hyperion Gaming and SG Proton are facing off in what is going to be a deciding match to see who makes it to playoffs. My name is Yarko, and I am joined by the lovely Dory K on production and color. How you feeling tonight?
Hey guys, back on double duty again for another night, and I'm super excited to be here because this has got to be the most hype matchup of the season. This one's going to be a nail-biter, guys.
And Hyperion Gaming on blue has already started us off with the ban phase, knocking out Talia, Rakan, and Poppy as SG Proton are looking to respond by so far pinching out a lot of the AD carries from the meta. There goes Jinx and Ashe, and Nocturne is going to be the final one as now we dive into the B1 pick.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a good approach. Jinx is incredibly powerful on the patch. Giving her B1 is really dangerous. Ashe is kind of the same way. Ashe is a really strong counterpick to a lot of what the face of the meta is. And seeing that they've kind of pigeonholed, however, seeing SG pigeonhole Hyperion into a Maokai first pick makes me think that maybe they're not worried about the Maokai or they have something planned for it. At the same time, like, Nocturne is probably one of the strongest carry junglers on the patch, if not one of the strongest junglers on the patch, period. So I'm excited to see how this goes for the Maokai, because he's going to have, it's a pretty strong blind, and it's a pretty flexible blind, for at least for some of these teams.
Yeah, 100%. You say pigeonhole, but at the same time, it's a very comfy hole to be in. Hyperion Gaming has doubtlessly played this quite a bit. This is one of the champions that has just been premier for about a year now, with not really anything shifting in that jungle. So happy to see this come out. SG Proton going to go to another set of reliable champions, though. That's going to be a Ziggs and a Mumu. Both actually very flexible. A Mumu could be support or jungle. Ziggs could be bot or mid.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, and this combination is incredibly strong, especially with the changes to Abyssal Mask, and I'm worried about seeing the Sivir hover, especially because that makes Ziggs capable of going bot, but maybe at the same time, Attila's just saying, I don't feel like interacting with the lane, I'm just going to farm, and I'm going to have that AoE power, which is going to be good against your typical Mumu comp. And Orianna, at the same time, these guys understand the meta. Orianna is easily one of the most, if not the most blindable mid laner on the patch right now, and really good for this IBS, the gold, and even the plat divisions because she's such an easy champ to execute, and these AoE team fight comps are bread and butter for this area.
Yeah, Dory, I think that I could start counting up. It's good for the Plat division, it's good for the Diamond division, it's good for the Masters division, it's good for Challengers, it's good for Pro Play. It's one of the best picks. Really happy to see it come out for Hyperion Gaming, who I really think are also trying to go for this angle where they're reading the Ziggs as bot, and what they're trying to do with the Sivir is just ensure that he never hits tower early, because you get into those nightmare scenarios where Ziggs is able to lane swap after blowing up the tier 1 at 12 minutes in or something like that, and all of a sudden Hyperion Gaming, no matter how well they're doing on the kills and gold, will suddenly start falling behind on tempo. So SG Proton have to see how they're going to respond to that. But so far, we're just getting more of a lockup, a little bit more flex throughout those 3 roles. Seraphine coming through might be support once again, might be mid.
Yeah, absolutely. And seeing top lane bans from the side of SG in the second rotation makes me think that they're thinking about blinding R4, which seems odd to me because they have counterpick, but maybe they just don't want to see that. They also pick up the Blitzcrank ban, which again makes me think that they're calling Hyperion's bluff. It's definitely not a Maokai support, it's definitely a Maokai jungle, and honestly, Blitz can be problematic for Seraphine in some situations. The champion can create so much pressure, Ziggs isn't super mobile. There is a situation where he can get himself out of hooks, but like it's not super consistent, so I would not try it. And seeing the Tristana ban in response as well into Orianna is pretty safe.
Hyperion Gaming have to tread carefully here. They know that SG Proton needs an AD source, so they're going to pinch away that Tristana, but out comes the Jace. More range, more poke. SG doesn't ever really want to go in with this composition, except for via the Amumu. We were looking at that Wombo combo with Mega Inferno Bomb and Encore, but now I really do think that they have assembled the Voltron of the modern-day poke comp. Let's see how Hyperion Gaming is going to respect this. I think that they need a lot of engage. They need it fast. Orianna can do some of the lifting. Maokai is just an engaged machine, and Olaf is going to be fantastic to run through that initial poke with the Ragnarok and hopefully start a fight off on Blue Squad's terms.
Yeah, I absolutely love Olaf as a pick here. I think Olaf is great at disrupting these kind of compositions that SG Proton is constructing. At the same time, there is a lot of risk in the champion. Getting poked down early is dangerous. However, he has a fantastic supporting cast, especially with that Rel Blue 5. I think it's a fantastic supporting cast. You have that full-on engage with Thrill of the Hunt with Sivir. Maokai Ultimate is great at creating this setup, and then you just throw an Orianna ball on him and he's alive forever. Ragnarok, great tool into the Mumu comps, great tool into Seraphine comps.
A Scion hover at the very end here implies to me that this is going to be Ziggs Seraphine bot lane. We got the Jace mid, we got the Scion top, and the Amumu jungle. I like the tankiness that's come back out of SG with the Scion pick and the Amumu, and I also like the fact that Scion, being so good at also busting down towers, kind of plays alongside the Ziggs super well, because most likely this is not going to be a team fighting Scion. This is going to be something that's looking to split push, occupy the Olaf, but if Olaf is drawn to these 4v4s or 5v5s are going to take place elsewhere on the map, Scion knocking down towers is something that Hyperion Gaming is eventually going to have to address. And because SG Proton are willing to play any encounters really slowly off their range advantage, I think that it's going to be up to Hyperion Gaming to try to force something. And if Rel misengages, if Olaf can't quite get in, if Maokai runs out the Nature's Grasp and finds nothing, SG can really just kind of play this game plan where, hey, they are still pressuring the base without ever really starting off fights.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree, actually. It's sorry, I'm just blanking for a second. I think that the SG Proton comp is actually kind of nice here because it has like a pretty diverse identity. It's and having like typically it's easier to itemize for multiple MR, like multiple magic threats versus AD threats. However, Amumu makes this like weird function for Ziggs and Seraphine and himself even by being able to easily build the Abyssal Mask and then having the Abyssal Mask built into his W. It makes Jace all that more threatening because it makes it hard to effectively itemize armor. So it makes his poke incredibly powerful and it makes it great at sticking. So I honestly think that the way they utilize the Jace pick and then the triple AP style, or the triple AP, actually works really well for them here.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was my main worry coming out of the first 3 picks from SG Proton. It's a lot of magic damage to go for the Ziggs and Seraphine. That has been tempered somewhat by it being a Seraphine support. So yeah, you probably are going to be building a little bit more enchantry for this composition anyway, because you want to keep SG Proton healthy during these long excursions where you're just kind of dancing back and forth with Hyperion Gaming, trying to bait out something like a Rail Crash Down or a Maokai Nature's Grasp. So like the fact that that comes through, and then we see the Jace really kind of being the focal point of the last part of SG Proton's damage profile, but simultaneously, this is a composition that kind of needs to be ahead to actually be a threat to Hyperion Gaming's health bars during the poke war, because there's a chance that you're just kind of just tickling the likes of the Olaf and the Maokai. They do not care, and they will be able to walk really far forward, and SG Proton only has so much space to run. Now, we are seeing in the client draft about what is expected, everybody. That's going to be the Olaf in the top lane, Maokai in the jungle for Hyperion Gaming, and I think that's probably best here. Olaf needs as much income as he can get, and I don't think that he needs a lot of presence on the map early. What he really needs to do is just get there for a few crucial team fights mid to late game, play off of Attila on the Sivir as well, and I think that Hyperion Gaming still have a shot. But overall, SG Proton, I think, have navigated this draft excellently. Might be my favorites for this game number 1.
I completely agree. And I am expecting both junglers to kind of path towards this highly volatile top lane, because the other 2 lanes are kind of, I don't want to say snooze fest, but there's definitely play potential for Hyperion's bot lane. But Sivir also is fine with handshaking the lane as long as she's able to sustain the poke. I expect to see Inspiration second, maybe some cookies, or at the very least, like second wind. Orianna versus Jace. Yes, Jace. Orianna versus Jace can definitely have its explosive moments, especially when Jace is paired with the Amumu, but I do expect a lot of action to come from this top lane because it has so much opportunity for Olaf, but Olaf can also be shut down and completely taken out of the game if he's ganked early. So it's kind of awkward being like tank into Olaf for a gank, but it's also really convenient setup, so maybe you only have to gank him once and he's just set for the rest of the game, doesn't have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah, definitely going to be keeping eyes up there, and Hyperion Gaming really need this Olaf to come alive, I think, to have an approach option versus SG Proton. So for both sides, this is going to be a crucial game for that 1v1, and it's going to be a crucial game for both overall, because Hyperion Gaming and SG Proton both want to make their berth into the playoffs here come next week of the Gold Division. Right now, they're both hovering on the cusp of being able to enter. Now, as we move to enter into game number 1, we got to give a quick shout out over to Coachify GG, one of our 2 sponsors here on the BOL stream. It is one of those bastions of the amateur scene here in League of Legends, sponsoring not only BOL, but we also saw them in NACL qualifiers, running a full team that almost made it to the qualification tournament. But regardless, what exactly is Coachify GG now that you've heard the name? They are a premier website for hosting coaches and their services for a variety of different games and esports. And so if you're interested in getting coached or becoming a coach, I highly recommend checking them out.
Absolutely. And with that, we want to get into our intermission and get into our game soon. However, we do have one thing to talk about real quick. I understand that it's all fun and games. BOL is a fantastic place. However, BOL needs to also be an inclusive place. While there were some things that happened today in the league, and we understand smurfing is bad, you don't want to do it, and the person in question has suffered the consequences. Keep in mind, everybody, here in Blue Water League, we are an inclusive environment, and we are an environment that promotes health and promotes mental health. So with that, keep in mind that the things you say online do have an effect on real-life people somewhere around the world, so just maybe keep those words to yourselves if you don't have anything particularly kind to say. So with that being said, though, no more bad times. Not going to talk about it anymore. We're going to get into this game, and it's going to be super fun. Are you ready, Nyarko?
I'm 100% ready. We'll see you guys on the other side. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Blue Otter League Gold Division for week number 7 of competition. Hyperion Gaming versus SG Proton is underway, and this is some very smart drafting from both sides of the coin. Not something I was expecting out of our lovely Gold League, as sometimes it gets a little bit wild in here, but a lot of poke coming through from SG Proton. I think they have a fantastic idea of where they want to go with this game, but Hyperion Gaming has answered back what's really solid engage, and I think both of us want our eyes on the top side.
I wholeheartedly agree. I actually almost forgot to unmute my mic, but hello everybody, I'm also here. You see that that defensive ward coming from Amumu. Amumu does like to, Amumu, if possible, does like to start that red side, but maybe he's just accounting for an invade here. And I mean, bot lane is super good at stacking CC from the side of Soul and Malone, so I can totally see like a red side clear to totally avoid the Maokai. And play towards keeping that bot lane with Prio, because Ziggs and Seraphine should have no problem doing it, and it'll give them like permanent dragon control in the early game.
Something to keep an eye out for. I think both of us, eventually Sion and Olaf are going to be the focal point of these two teams, but Cathral starting on the top, trying to clear the way bot makes a lot of sense to me here. I think that if Seraphine could get that double beat drop early and they could force something out of Rogue Crown, who is not really going to have much presence in this lane unless Red Squad massively mispositions, that could be a very softened up Rel very early on, trying to negotiate with the Mumu coming down on top of either them or the Sivir, so it could be a really tough situation, and the poke is already starting in earnest.
Yeah, and I've been liking seeing more and more of these like AoE junglers starting the Raptors here. It actually got highlighted, funny enough, in a video between Riot Games channel in conjunction with Skillshare. They were talking about like the strength of doing the Raptor start and then how to counter it. And they just used like some LCS games from Blabber as an example of like how to set up that pathing. And it works really well. It basically gets you to Scuttle Crab early as we see a fight break out bot.
And Attila's going incredibly low. Ignite ticking away, will die, and Rogue Crown just has to walk this out. Unfortunate for Hyperion Gaming, and I think that's kind of a microcosm of what I'm worried about come mid to late for this squad. They try to find the engage, it doesn't quite work out. SG Proton's able to get out from under the Rel, and then they just walk it back, and Attila just has no response, really. They die, and they are going to be down in tempo in that lane. Now, topside, we are looking at Toddy2K doing a good job trying to trade against ISO, gets the solo Bolo off of a reckless swing, and is able to walk off the zombie form too.
And this is such a Toddy way to play early. He's a really strong laner, loves to play for those early levels, and the guy is definitely showing it here. Olaf is a champion that definitely suits him and helps balance out the first blood that happened in the bot side here. Now, as you were saying too, like it is tough to be a Sivir here when being outranged so heavily, when playing into only like 1.5 melees, because Sivir would rely on that ricochet to effectively DPS in the late game to extend the range of that W, but a team that's so spread out with multiple range champions makes it a little bit harder. At the same time, I think Attila definitely has windows, but Ziggs just provides so much safety when in conjunction with Seraphine that they should be perfectly alright and difficult to deal with. That being said, there are great ball delivery options for Orianna, so I think Orianna does have the capability to create clumped up situations, and I think there is a scary scenario for SG Proton where like Orianna plus Sivir have this critical mass point that become a huge problem.
You know, let's talk about this mid lane a little bit, Dory, because I did not manage to do my research in time. I don't know how to pronounce either of these champions' names. Alphaete, I imagine it's going to be for SG Proton, but my thing for Detholo is that they have the IL before it, and while both letters are capital, which implies that it's going to be like an org or team name, all I could think of with the name Detholo is that it's Italian. Il Detholo, you know? And so I don't know what I'm going to be saying during play-by-play mode.
You kind of want to like say it like with your hand up, like Il Detholo, Il Detholo.
Il Detholo!
Yeah, Alf just goes by Alf. So he's pretty easy to work with. As he goes down pretty low in mana, he's probably going to be forced to use that teleport here to get back into lane. And Orianna getting control of the lane. Il Detholo with the really good early mana conservation, like playing around getting that early tier. He actually appears to have used an early teleport to come back with tier. So he's going to be able to sustain in this lane incredibly well. He doesn't have to interact with the Jace, and as long as he can stack the wave effectively as a gank comes out top,
Yeah, I like this play. Lock going to be able to get the Bramble Smash. ISO in a lot of trouble. Just going to have to take the punishment and die. Getting the trade back against Toddy 2K is really nice here. But still, that zombie form is not going to hang around for a very long time. Although the Maokai showing does mean now SG Proton can also go for the cross map. And if they get the Dragon, this is overall a value positive play for them.
Yeah. It's definitely a value positive play going 1-for-1. It is a little unfortunate that the Olaf died, but it's not like he had a shutdown or anything. That granted, the Scion's getting this good CS lead despite being harassed so hard in the lane. Hopefully Toddy can translate that into a CS lead in a short period of time. But seeing that Scion actually build the early Bramble Vest, it's such a cost-efficient way to deal with Olaf in the early game.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that Toddy 2K may have already had their little moment to get those kills, to get that advantage taken away from them by the build path of ISO, which is no great shakes. I think that Toddy did a fantastic job with his first few levels, but post 6, ISO's game plan is really online, which is push into towers even if you die. Doesn't matter anymore. You're getting so much in return. Here comes the Ragnarok, though. From down on health, Toddy is going to try to commit here, but this is scary. It could be another 1-for-1 as he chases the Scion to Bush, loses the ultimate. Doesn't really matter. They will be able to stabilize, and now ISO has to struggle to push this wave in.
All right, now keep in mind, there is a window where the Unstoppable Force can absolutely, I said Unstoppable Force. Unstoppable Onslaught. Where the Unstoppable Onslaught is definitely an option, but Toddy being able to get that sustain, use Olaf passive to keep himself a little bit healthier and have that higher attack speed. Oh, W. I meant W. Anyways, that was an awesome Q from ISO. It did a lot of damage, actually. And,
yeah, it's gotten a few of these decimating smashes landed onto Toddy 2K, getting a stun, and just overall keeping this lane as stable as possible. Now, this bounce back is a little bit rough. The Scion is down the teleport, notably, so Olaf can continue to keep the pressure up and maybe go for a kill here in a little bit. But right now, we got to look at the Tholo once again, just going really far forward, losing the cannon for that trade. Don't know if it's worth it. Let's see if they can translate it into an actual kill onto the Jace coming up.
Yeah, and without any combat summoners, like, you traditionally wouldn't expect them to have kill threat, but all sorts of funky things happen here, and with that massive wave building up, Jace is going to get the bounce back, which is going to put the Tholo in a position where he does have a gank window if he can identify where these can't. Oh no!
Oh, gets the axe snipe!
Alright. What I was going to say is the wave's going to bounce back, and that gives Maokai a gank window, but Cathrol's going to come up here and try to actually get a counter gank. Let's see what happens here.
Looks like they will be able to just clean things up. However, we got the 2-man coming up to the little mummy boy. Level 6 for the Amumu, going to detonate this Curse of the Sad Mummy and keep the Maokai under tower. That is not how all Hyperion Gaming wanted that to go, and so that's great. Proton doesn't even really lose too much in that lane itself, as ISO's going to come back up with their Unstoppable Onslaught, and now Rel's just a sitting duck, leaving the Sivir alone in the bot side of the map. Seraphine's going to cheat up. That is the first big play in favor of one of these two teams we've seen all game, and SG Proton are going to take a slight lead.
Yeah, the gold lead is small, but it is building up ever so slowly, and that first Ocean Drake is an awesome isolated Drake. Well, Ocean Soul's not the absolute best in the world. Ocean Drake on its own is amazing for the early game here, as ISO is just going to go down, I think, to this gang.
Interesting that they decide to give the kill over to the Rel. I think that Toddy 2K was healthy enough to where the Rel could have been a little bit more ginger with the number of attacks they were throwing their way near the end. But hey, Rogue bringing some gold back to the bot side is never really that bad of an idea. Locke does have to come down here, notably, in order to address the fact that Control was maybe looking to go for some kind of dive against the lone Attila in the bot side of the map. But now the Maokai does have level 6, and it means that because that's the case, Ziggs and Seraphine both do have to respect it and back off.
That's absolutely right. They are being put back into like this situation where we're going 1-for-1 on kills constantly. The gold is swinging a little bit in one way or the other at any given time, but it seems like it's still like stabilizing around like a 200-300 gold diff at any given time. And it really says both these teams are evenly matched. They're making counterplays on opposite sides of the map. They both junglers seem to understand what their goal is when they see the other one interact with the map, and having such like high impact early game junglers It makes it really exciting, actually. I love these kind of games with like the constant ganks, the constant fighting. It's just much more fun to cast. As again, Toddy is going to try to get some damage down here. I don't really expect a lot to happen, though.
This is very aggressive. Yeah, I don't think so either. And now the Olaf's actually really low in this lane. Has the Ragnarok available. Not really going to be able to use it too effectively. And you got to look at the timer on ISO's ultimate. If they're able to get that back up, even if Toddy is trying to back, they could be interrupted and blown up. But it's not even needed. They're just going to die to another Q. As now mid lane Ildotolo has to use the Shockwave to pull back Alf and Cathral, who both managed to walk out that 2v2.
Oh.
Hyperion Gaming able to stabilize there. But the Scion is actually starting to become a real problem.
I don't know if Dotolo, like, thought he didn't do a lot of damage because he kept backing up after he used the Singularity, but he totally had a window to kill as the Mega Inferno Bomb comes down. Does not get a kill. And we're going to have both of them walk away here. Scion going to be forced to use his ult to get away. And again, just a small swing for SG. SG getting that really positive play for the Scion. Toddy, unfortunately, not being able to deal with the Scion could be problematic depending on where he goes with his build. It looks like he's going for his Triforce, right? Yeah.
I think that he is going for Triforce here. Not a whole lot of things that the shovel builds into alongside the pickaxe, so I do believe that's Triforce, but I'm not the expert on top lane builds.
Yeah.
To note really quick, Dory, before we get into what could be another action-packed play around this dragon that spawned up. Well, never mind, it is going to be taken by SG Proton. But one thing to note is that one of the reasons why Dotolo may have been so wary about going full hog onto any play mid after landing the Shockwave is that Soul had the Mega Inferno Bomb available. Could have cleaned up 2 for 2 because Locke was also incredibly low in that play. Makes a lot of sense that things kind of showed out the way that they did, as now we are going to see a commitment to this Rift Herald top side by the Maokai in order to answer the crash. In turn, Alf is going to come up with a teleport. Did they just deny the charge?
It looks like it. It definitely looks like it. It looks like it, yeah. That being said...
No, I think he got 2 plates. I think we're fine here. A plate and a half, something like that.
Yeah, plate and change.
Regardless.
Now, yeah, Rift Herald doesn't take a guaranteed, like, 2 plates worth of true damage anymore. Yep. As I've been reminded by Twitch chat, I think Fenbach should join as the color commentator for the next game because he immediately understood that it's Stridebreaker. I'm a dummy. As the Singularity comes down, it looks like we're going to get a CC chain over from Hyperion Gaming to take Alf out in his own jungle. That's kind of toxic, man. It is only 12 minutes and you're sending 4 people in a topside jungle.
I think this is a smart call. They know Alf has to try to make it back to the mid lane, and this is actually a huge tempo swing for Dotolo, though, because all alone, they're going to be able to shove this into the tower, get a plate or 2 before this next minute elapses in order for them to be able to become more of a threat mid. They need to go for as many of these plays as possible, and I like the fact that Hyperion Gaming, even from slightly behind, are showing the fangs, being aggressive, and now they've actually tied up the gold lead perfectly.
Yeah, this game is so back and forth. It's hard to tell even who has, like, the momentum here, because both teams have, like, a decent amount of scaling as the Flash, Curse of the Sad Mummy, comes down.
That's so much damage. Now we're going to see Rel commit for another crash down. They get the stun under tower. Soul will fall, but Rogue cannot stay there any longer. A 1-for-1 overall, but a kill going over to the support of Hyperion is definitely not preferable, and SG Proton once again gets a little bit stronger onto their carries.
We're looking absolutely powerful in some of the places that matter, but I want to take a quick glance at this Gold League and kind of point out where the allocation is going. You can see the junglers only being a couple hundred off in this kind of like tank versus tank matchup. Isn't going to make a massive amount of difference, but you can kind of see what items are being put into it. You can see Maokai went for the early utility in his boots, but Amumu is going to have that increased clear speed with his W, with that Bomby Cinder to get around the map a lot faster. That being said, Maokai physically walks a little bit faster. As they look like Maokai is trying to interact with this lane, Toddy's kind of giving it away, but we'll see if something still comes from it.
It'll be tough, I think, for Locke to get a whole lot up here. Because of Nature's Grasp, there's always a chance you're going to be able to get onto even the slipperiest of champions. But ISO does have ultimate, does have flash available, and being at full health, I think even if they do get pinned down for a little bit by the roots, it's going to be difficult to do anything from that scenario. Toddy no longer is the big kill threat that we saw super early in the laning phase, as we also got to direct our attentions bot side. Attila, once again, focused so beautifully by Soul and company, able to get out from under the Mega Inferno bomb, but it doesn't change the fact that Rogue can no longer hold on, and therefore Hyperion Gaming will just have to back off of what is another aggressive play turned topsy-turvy by SG Proton.
Yeah, and as I was getting into the gold differences, the mid versus bot gold difference, which do you think is more impactful? Like Oriana's lead, or do you think Ziggs' lead is more impactful? Because I have an idea, but
it's interesting, right? I think that the Ziggs' gold lead is a little bit more impactful, but the notable thing to balance that out is the fact that Ziggs didn't get that from destroying this tower early, so there's still more gold for him to access, but furthermore, Ziggs' game plan isn't quite as online as Oriana's is at this point. I really need to see more structure damage before I get very excited for SG Proton's chances, specifically off of Soul. Although overall, they're in a very comfortable spot regardless. Up about 500 right now. I think this is perfectly cromulent for SG to continue to put forward. They just don't really have an exact perfect win condition fully lined up just yet.
yeah, and I do like that they're taking physical action on the side of SG to make a global map play, well, semi-global map play, to take an early tower and get that reset with Dragon coming up. I would have liked to see it a little sooner, but I do think that given the amount of tempo that they're able to acquire by having the wave pushed in their favor before the reset, they're going to be able to get control of this. But again, Hyperion says, no, we're not just going to give this away to you. We know you're late, and we're going to be on Dragon first, and they're already getting control of this river here.
Three-man Curse of the Sad Moment from Control, and we see Sion trying to follow through with the Unstoppable Onslaught. They will not be able to land a crash onto anybody, but still kills Ildotolo, and so we're talking about that head-to-head. Now the Ziggs is clearly in advantage, and SG Proton are going to be able to move towards a easy soul point here so early on in this game.
Yeah, and just like that early tower take, SG appears to just be making these plays and getting these rotations off so much faster. Toddy hasn't really accomplished much of anything. He got a tower and he got another wave push, but sitting on TP, he's not able to impact the bot side of the map as well as the Sion. But Hyperion was still posturing as if they were going to contest this Drake, and they got punished for it heavily. Oriana's still not able to translate that lead into towers or translate that lead into map plays. So I think I agreed with you that Oriana's lead is probably more significant, but I'd like to see Dotolo actually use that lead to accomplish something on the map.
Well, you know, these fights are actually pretty ideal for SG Proton and their game plan, and that could be part of the reason why we aren't seeing the Oriana fully come up to snuff in regards to what we need out of them for damage and engage. Proton could easily play across choke points during things like dragon fights, and we're going to hold the thought as Dotolo is going to be tested once again. Katral trying to sit right on top of them. Toddy going to commit a teleport to the bot side to make this a 2v2, and now with the banished shots deep into enemy territory, that Amumu is not getting out. Shutdown going to be claimed actually by the Viking.
And that command shockwave just going to be a little bit of a security option. Does keep the Amumu from landing the bandage toss onto Krugs or something and making some crazy escape. So I think it's also a pretty efficient spell to use when you don't have any maps or any objectives to take on the map right now. So definitely a good play, and good to continue funneling gold onto this Oriana, as well as Toddy making a pretty good teleport play on the map. And I do like this because they are able to use their double teleport setup to just send Oriana top and prevent Sion from creating any kind of map pressure. So right now, Sion is kind of getting beaten in his objective, but I can definitely see this standing gold on the map for SG ballooning their gold lead. And now that they're on threat of Soul Point already as early as 19 minutes, with 3 minutes left, so you're looking at 22-minute Soul threat, that puts a timer on Hyperion. So we're going to see what they're going to do with this Rift Herald and see if they can translate that into stopping the dragon stacking here in the next couple minutes.
It's definitely a good swing for Hyperion Gaming to be able to get second Shelly. The problem is, I think SG Proton can actually call Blue Squad's bluff in a lot of situations where even if Shelly gets 2 towers mid, it's probably worth it to give them up for Soul, as Il Tolo is going to be able to get a shockwave over the wall. Alf manages to flash away to safety, but Control once again has to cover. Now they are going to go for the counter engage, but with Alf playing so far back, I think Orianna is going to be able to get away from this.
And that was a good trade of spells. Again, Orianna just used ultimate to secure a kill bot. She already had it command shockwave ready again up in the top lane, so I think it's totally fine to continue to use it aggressively like that. And I like to see these plays from Tolo, because Hyperion, again, like you were mentioning, they're going to be able to call their bluff. They have to stop the dragon stacking, but like, are you going to be able to threaten anything with this Herald? Well, you have to, realistically. Within the next minute, within the next few seconds, honestly, I'd like to see this Herald get dropped and sent towards the top side and possibly have a TP pushed. But at the same time, like Toddy and Tolo, timers on their TP are just not lined up. So I'm expecting to see both of them hovering here because they cannot physically afford to be topside.
Baron Nashor is also up. We got a very impactful team fight on the horizon around this next dragon. It could be the chance for either team to just go runner from one neutral objective to the next if they get a successful ace or something close to it. And we've seen how well these teams kind of snowball full-on fights. Katral could go for multiple bandage tosses, has the Curse of the Sad Mummy. You could follow through with ISO using their ultimate as well. But Hyperion Gaming can similarly just melt through the enemy team like butter, and Attila is going to be crucial to that. Il Tolo will be setting up alongside Toddy, Locke, and then from there, Sivir may finally get online, and that might be enough for Hyperion Gaming to deny any future dragons, any future Baron Nashors, and really turn the game on its head in favor of Hyperion.
All right, now keep a close eye on what this Maokai is about to do. He's got the Rift Herald, and he's got 30 seconds on this Drake. This is going to be a pivotal fight. I want to see what kind of vision setup Hyperion's able to do when they've got Prio in this many lanes. We've got the teleport available for Toddy 2K, and he's applying this pressure to Alf, but Alf is able to match the TP. I'm expecting to see wards back a little bit because Alf doesn't have a good position to flank, and that's not really Jace's MO. So mid lane Prio going to be established, and Maokai going to be hovering. You know they want to drop this Rift Herald here. They want to at least guarantee something. They want to give themselves a favorable situation for this Drake, as Soul is forced to flash away. Here we go. We're going to get started up on this fight real soon. Expect to see some explosions around this choke point.
Double decimating smash. ISO doesn't have backup, so they are just going to have to move away from this river, and so far this is total prio for Hyperion Gaming. But we saw a similar situation play out last time. SG Proton going to try to file through this choke point. They find an angle onto Tolo. Mega Inferno Bomb comes out. Orianna will just be able to flash back. Here comes a crash on a split control for the rest of the team. ISO going to try to ult forward, will be able to kill the Orianna, but nobody can answer the Ragnaroked up Olaf in the backline, picking up a triple kill and stuffing ISO in between 3 Blue Squad members. Hyperion Gaming come alive. They are looking to deny the soul.
And down on the backside of the fight, actually, Rel goes down. So let's see how long he lives here.
Jace gonna jump forward heroically, trying to play off of Sion, who remains alive, and this poke war isn't over just yet. Jace has space to play off of. Attila will land a killing blow onto the Sion, but the corpse gets a triple kill. Sivir will not be able to take this dragon alone, and we are back to square one. SG Proton with a slight swing, having a Mumu go down early in this fight, will be able to get back out onto the map before the Maokai, and I spoke too soon. SG Proton, they're aiming to go for Soul.
And look at Orianna here. They are going for another play immediately. They're going to fight for this dragon as soon as they possibly can. This game is so close for words. I don't know what they're going to do, though. So many cooldowns were used in the last fight. Does SG just get this dragon for free?
I think they do. Soul has Mega Inferno Bomb back up, so approaches are going to be tough for Hyperion Gaming. They need to make something happen here and now, but unfortunately with Control having that smite available, I don't really know if Hyperion can dedicate enough to this play to turn things back around. It's going low. Here comes the distracting ult from ISO, pushing Hyperion Gaming back, and not only do they get the Soul, now they're going to start picking up kills again, and this is a Baron Nashor play as well. Exactly like I was talking about, Dory. Hyperion, they almost almost brought it back, but now they are caught up against an immense wave of pressure. Hextech so good with the poke identity of SG Proton, and this Baron Nashor is just going to be the cherry on top.
And this is such a pivotal moment of this game. It has been so close, so back and forth, taking advantages by both teams, but we're going to start seeing this gold lead absolutely balloon out of control if SG can do something effective with this Baron Nashor. There's so much standing gold available on the map, but at the same time, Hyperion, again, even when they're down, are making a positive play. Look at Sivir applying pressure to this mid wave. Look at Maokai getting a split going on in the bot lane. She's able to use On the Hunt to rotate bot lane maybe and help Locke make this play for this tower. So again, this is definitely going to be huge for SG, and this is an absolutely massive moment for them to build a gap finally, a noticeable gap in this game. But at the same time, Hyperion just has that fight, and it makes this game so much fun to watch.
The problem is Hyperion's win condition is to deny these kinds of advantages to SG Proton. Look at how much punishment Rogue Crown is taking under the tower as the Rel. The poke is absurd with Hextech Soul, and unfortunately, Hyperion could not have rolled worse for the thing to deprioritize in this game. If they were able to win that team fight, if they were able to get Baron, this would be a very different story. But this series and this game may be decided by a matter of inches, and you know what that means. It's not only about winning or losing here and now, it's about the fact that this is for all the marbles. This is for making it to playoffs, and this could already be the heartbreaker played out in game number 1.
That's absolutely true, and as our good friend Kills from, oh no, as the Mega Inferno Bomb comes down, Shockwave from the bot lane at the same time, but the tower goes down. What's going to happen here? Ragnarok is getting popped, and I think
ISO probably is going to die here. There's the Reckless Swing to fully secure it for the Olaf, but this is a lot of resources being dedicated bot. Toddy will not be able to immediately rotate to the mid lane, and so they will not be there to stop the take of this tier 2 SG Proton. Even if the Scion dies, are, I think, fully enacting their game plan with these past few moments, just shoving over and over again, collecting standing gold on the map. And the real question becomes, how can Hyperion ever really try to move forward again? If an inhibitor is cracked off of a play here, by the way, this could just be end of the road because we're so accelerated towards an early Elder Dragon as well. Hyperion Gaming just may never find the ability to bring their heads back above water.
Yeah, and I was saying early on that the scaling does benefit Sivir and Orianna, but we're kind of in this situation where SG has given themselves everything they need to secure a win here. This is a fantastic position for them to be in, and being able to use that Ziggs Prio and that Jace Prio with his range, with his ability to rotate onto the map a little bit faster than Orianna, this is the end result. Getting full dragon control, despite the game being seemingly as close as it is turning into a nightmare scenario if you're on the side of Hyperion Gaming here. At the same time, like, we're not seeing Olaf effectively creating advantages in the side lane now. Every time he's in a lane with Olaf, he's unable to push into it, and Ziggs is able to just blow up anything that he faces. So I'm looking to see SG create this scenario where Hyperion just straight up cannot handle facing them at the dragon.
The Elder Dragon? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Elder Dragon. I think an Elder Dragon situation is becoming more and more realistic here because they can't afford to just give this control of Drake anymore, and SG has just been rotating onto these plays so much better in this game. You've seen them rotate onto objectives, get better timers, base timers, and you've seen them rotate onto plays much, much faster. And honestly, the Soul doesn't help with that. The Hextech Soul is going to assist with that wave clear that's already arguably in their favor at the moment. Somebody in chat mentioned Sivir's wave clear isn't really matching. You see the Static Shiv build to address it, and as a fight breaks out,
Nature's Grasp, things split once again. Soul having to run so far back, but the Olaf will be able to secure the kill. The problem is they can't really turn things back around fast enough. Rogue Crown's going to go down. Alf may be the late game hero once again as we see Locke locked on up by the bandage toss combined with ISO using that decimating smash. They're going to get a second knock up onto the Maokai. There's not enough damage there just yet. The Tree Man will eventually fall. There's a wave here for Hyperion to try to push back off of, but unfortunately, Toddy 2K isn't doing enough now. While the Amumu falls, that was basically inevitability. This is still a man advantage fight for SG Proton. They're going to be able to hit this inhibitor, and now they can choose to either go even deeper up against a softened up Tholo and Attila, or they could move over and start up this Elder Dragon in 36 seconds.
Yeah, and I expect them to just play it safe just out of concerns for accidentally throwing. You don't have the longest cooldown left on lock, and the other three are able to address the waves perfectly fine. So, again, SG is able to get back onto the map very quickly. They're going to have a Mumu back up in 15 seconds along with Toddy 2K. Toddy does have the advantage of having teleport, and we see a teleport channeling immediately to head into this Dragon Pit and maintain control. SG, again, getting absolute control of this river and making it so that Hyperion Gaming is forced to funnel into these chokes that they're just layering so much damage and CC onto.
Most ultimates back up for both sides. Still looking at Encore to come through for Malone. It's finally going to tick down as the Dragon is started up in earnest by SG Proton. Hyperion Gaming trying to find an angle. They need to go for a flank play off of Rogue or Toddy 2K, but so far SG Proton have called the bluff. They're staying set up as 5 members, and they are trying to just get this massive objective. If it falls for one team or the other, we are at the very least seeing a massive swing in the topography of things, if not just the end of the game outright. It all comes down to how well can Hyperion Gaming finally set up for an approach near this pit. No dragons claimed so far. The Elder may be their first.
And check out this blue buff. Watch Toddy 2K as this fight starts off. They do have vision of him on the side of SG. This fight's about to go absolutely crazy.
And notably, SG Proton cannot use their poke quite as well to repel Hyperion Gaming because they're so dedicated to trying to get this Elder Dragon. And now we see the crash out of Foreman Madness Storm. Look at the shockwave. Oh my God! Hyperion Gaming, they're going to stabilize. Olaf unleashed with the Ragnarok yet again. ISO gets a kill onto Rogue Crow, but it's too little too late. Proton crumbled near the Elder Dragon, and they're right back in this.
All right, and real quick, it looks like Toddy's actually going to try to zone them off and prevent it, and the Elder Drake is going to go down for the side of Hyperion. And now we should see this tower possibly get recovered if they reset fast enough. Is it going to survive or not? But this puts the... Yep, it goes down. That's one. Count of one. Still got two. Still got one left. But that is one Nexus turret going down, and mid lane priority is going to be reestablished with Elder Drake up. Can Hyperion use this Elder Drake to grant themselves Baron control? This is an uphill battle in terms of map control to get themselves back into the game, but it's a stabilization of gold, and that gold needs to be funneled onto Sivir and Orianna in the near time, or else those fights won't happen again, because Amumu and Sion will only get harder and harder to kill, and it will only get harder to fight through Malone's shielding and healing capabilities. I'm excited to see what Attila and Tholo can do, but if they can stall for a little bit longer, they're going to put themselves in a position where this game is less about how quickly SG can close, and it's really going to become about who will actually win. Because now we've got river control completely in the favor of Hyperion, and they're going to start just taking this Baron in their face.
And I don't think SG Proton can afford to contest this, unfortunately. The Elder Dragon buff is just so immensely powerful, and this Olaf is so fed now that unless you find a crucial pick through your poke, SG are just going to have to turtle up. They have the balancing factor of having that inhibitor down in the mid lane, but Hyperion Gaming are going to get that back eventually. And the problem is SG Proton are starting to have some of these main carries outstripped by Hyperion's ability to just stack temporary buff on temporary buff. No longer do I think Soul is going to be a raid boss. I don't think ISO is going to be able to hold on for as long either. And really, nobody can touch Toddy 2K at this point in time. Maybe 40 minutes into this game, we're going to see a change on that front. But Blue Squad has some open space to play off of, and they need to make a fatal blow to SG.
Mother of God, Nyarko, this is going to be a long series, isn't it?
There's a chance it could be a long series. This is quite the comeback from Hyperion Gaming, but SG Proton have also proven their chops so far. I think that they set themselves up well for success, but sometimes if you just don't really have a way to control that Olaf, it doesn't really matter. It's very rare to see a soul, much less a 4-0 soul, turn so sour so suddenly, but right now SG Proton are experiencing that crushing reality.
Yeah, that is You know what? Never mind. That's not an understatement. It's just crazy. It is absolutely crazy that they're managing to turn this around, because it looked like SGP was just completely in control of this game, and that just between that command shockwave and the flank from Toddy, it just like it was set up so well. This Olaf has not been panning out the way that he's wanted all game, but it's finally time for Toddy to shine in that fight, and hopefully the Olaf doesn't continue to be outscaled and have a problem, because with Ragnarok, he does have the capability to cause a lot of damage and a lot of separation. So, I mean, this is anybody's game at this point. The timers are going to stall out. Baron will stall out just before the Elder Drake, I believe, if I got my timers correct. But, whew, at this point, Baron, Inhib's back up. We've got Inhib still up for SG. And we are in a game state where, for the first time in a while, Hyperion has a lead. It actually might have been the whole game. Has SG had like a slight gold lead the whole game?
I would say so, especially after that first Baron Nashor. SG was clearly in the driver's seat, which made that play around the Elder Dragon all the more unlikely, but Hyperion have stabilized in the nick of time, and now this is really anybody's round. SG Proton, if they get an ace, probably are ending the game because death timers are getting really long, but the same could be said for Hyperion Gaming, and so far, they have proven to be the multi-kill kings, looking at Toddy 2K, looking at Attila, looking at Rogue Crown, and Ilda Tholo with the lock as set up. There's a chance that we get something dramatic about to happen in the 2 minutes as next Elder has come through. And I must say, this last Baron push that we're seeing out of Hyperion hasn't done a whole lot to SG Proton overall, who are still up on the tower count. That just comes from the superior wave clear, especially with Hextech Soul. Now it's going to be for all the marbles around Elder Dragon one more time. Let's see who's going to be able to take this game.
Yeah, and honestly, having it being Hextech Soul is kind of unfortunate. Like, the Hextech Soul, don't get me wrong, does provide utility and is powerful in its own right. And the individual power of the dragons themselves has been lowered a little bit, and we're kind of seeing the effects of this most recent patch, but it's still something, right? Like, it's an effective, like, it is an effective amount of gold being put into their team, and SGP, like you said, has ending potential with any kind of one fight. Any kind of numbers advantage can spell doom when you've got things like the Ziggs and the Jace powered up by Hextech Soul, able to just stack massive waves and take that last Nexus turret. So, I completely agree. I think the game just ends on this next fight if more than one body goes down. And honestly, I think all bodies of one team go down if this Elder in the next 35 seconds is taken. But we'll see what happens. It might just be a bloodbath with not enough people to take Elder yet again. As teleports come in, we're going to see something huge happen here, Narco.
Yeah, we did see that around the fourth dragon of the game, where Hyperion Gaming expended all their resources to nearly ace SG Proton, but then because the death timers were short enough, SG was able to get back out onto the map and get Soul. Now here's the engage coming through Control, going to try to find an angle onto Dotolo to kill them early in this fight. They will succeed in doing so, but it takes a lot of resources away from Soul, who has now burned the flash, and they are unable to provide the artillery fire necessary to once again stop Toddy 2K. ISO totally
That's a triple for Toddy!
Side of the bush, and that will be the ace. Sivir going to land the last
kill.
It
looks like they're going to try to end, Yarko.
Hyperion Gaming are going to push for the end without the Elder Dragon. Timer's too long for SG Proton to bear. First game going to go over to the team down 4 dragons, down a Baron Nashor. It doesn't matter. They are the comeback kings, Dory.
That is absolutely correct. This game has been absolutely insane. Back and forth the entire time. We had no clue who was going to win until the last minute. But Hyperion is going to push through, going down 4 dragons. They're going to push through a gold disadvantage on nearly the entire game. And they're going to finish with 69,000 gold. Nice.
And Toddy 2K came out of that lane worryingly giving up a bit of gold to ISO, but it ultimately didn't matter. The Olaf was the carry, was the main source of damage for Hyperion Gaming, but really, when it comes down to pivotal plays, there's nobody that I could credit more than that combination of Rel and Orianna. The Shockwave, the Crashdown, the Magnet Storm, it was beautiful, and that's really what it has enabled this Olaf to be a threat time and time again, pushing through the response CC from SG Proton, getting on top of squishy members. That was just the draft playing out perfectly for Blue Squad come about the 30-minute mark.
Yeah, and I'm like I'm damn near out of breath right now. That game was so much fun to watch. The composition just finally coming online just in time, because it was absolutely doomed until it wasn't anymore. And honestly, ISO's final ultimate looked good. It looked like good setup, and it created space. And then the Seraphine ultimate and a Mumu ultimate stacked on top of Dotolo. But in the background, Rogue Crown was an absolute hero. Rogue Crown hit the absolute perfect Magnet Storm in the background to prevent Dotolo from going down, and then he was saved by the Seraph's Embrace. So if Dotolo went down, this was an entirely different fight. There were so many small things that happened at the end of this game that spelled the outcome of the game. And honestly, it could have gone either way, and I think both games, if not all 3 games of this series, are going to be just as exciting if we keep this level of play up.
All right, well, we gotta wind down. We gotta move into the second draft of the night, Dory, but what an exciting scene setting for this series that decides so much for Hyperion Gaming and SG Proton. Hyperion comes out on top in game number 1, but SG has really laid the groundwork for a clear identity with their team that they can play to perfection, that they can get dubs off of. I'm sure of it, and so you call this as a long series. I'm right there with you. Excited to see what's gonna happen for the second game running.
Give me some of that good stuff! What's up? Boom! 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 for the money, 2 for the show. Get on the bus, let's go!
friends, and welcome back to the BOL Gold Division. We are about to enter into the second draft of the night between SG Proton and Hyperion Gaming, the latter of which brought through one of the craziest comebacks in the history of the BOL Gold Division. Down 4 dragons, down so much, they find a clutch fight at the Elder, they get a Baron Nashor, and they finally clean things up. Now, SG Proton, so close to victory, find themselves one game away from elimination from the BOL Gold Division.
Yeah, I'm seeing that same bans coming out of SG Proton. They're thinking that their game plan was working game 1 at least, and then seeing the Maokai being taken away in response makes me think they aren't trying to first pick one of these highly powerful picks. Sorry, I thought I just heard something in the background. One of these highly powerful picks on the patch, but you do see them take away the Jinx from Hyperion Gaming in response, seeing that they are able on SG Proton's side to choose one of these 4 bans to not really worry about. They probably expected to take the Jinx first pick, which would have been absolutely massive for them last game, and I think if any team gets a hold of Jinx this series, it becomes a massive problem for the other team.
Simultaneously, I don't think that SG Proton need to do a whole lot to change what they drafted in game number 1, and there haven't been any adjustments to the ban philosophy of Hyperion Gaming regarding what they saw out of that first match, but SG is going to, at the very least, swap up their jungler, going for that Premier Jarvan, the 4th pick, and now Hyperion Gaming find themselves responses, not only in the jungle with the Zinni Z, but also with the bot side, going for the Kaisi S. That doesn't really work, but Kaisa, anyways, going to be a very good champion. I think that this is a different look for Attila, and I think a very needed one in this game. We really didn't see too much of a focus upon the marksman in the first round for Hyperion, which is not something you get to say very often in these games nowadays. It feels like everything is kind of revolving around an AD carry getting fed, but Toddy 2K was the focal point of last game. It's just not a very reliable way to win time after time. They need more than Toddy. I think Kaisa is going to be a great setup for that.
I completely agree. I think Kaisa is a very powerful pick on the patch. Still, I think she's got a lot of build diversity. Don't build Umbral Glaive. I'm looking at you. You know who you are. Don't build Umbral Glaive. I think Kaisa's a champion with a widely diverse pool of builds that are available to her that allow her to be a versatile champion, and she doesn't suffer from the same problems that the other previously face of the meta icon against Kaisa, Xayah, suffered in the way of facing Jarvan down. Kaisa's able to escape Jarvan engage, and she's able to play around it. However, I do like picking Lucian into the face of Kaisa, because the champion's in a uniquely good position to perform. He's able to skirt out team fights, and he's able specifically to deal with Xin Zhao very well. So I actually like that both teams are playing a little bit of chicken with the support pick right now, because I think support actually made a huge difference that last game. We were talking a lot about Toddy, about the jungle pathing, and about the impact of this mid lane, about the priority between the Orianna and the Jace that last game. But I think the supports were unsung heroes that game, and I think the Magnet Storms from Rel, especially late game, were game-changing, honestly.
Yeah. Unsung heroes. Rokrom piss smurfed all over SG Proton in that Elder Dragon fight. Combined with Ildotolo's Shockwave, we saw the entire game turn on a dime because of these supports, and I'm so excited to see what's going to come out again. SG Proton going for something a lot more early game oriented in the bot lane is going to be another huge shift in their team identity, so maybe they're going to be the ones trying to go for a champion like that Rel, but Hyperion Gaming are going to have the R4 coming first in the second phase. It probably means we're going to be seeing the support come out here.
Yeah, and I don't think the combination of Lucian Nami is highlighted too much anymore. It was left up, and we did see the Braum ban coming out from the side of Hyperion, which is a uniquely strong way to pair with Lucian on top of being really effective into these champions that Kaisa likes. And we're actually going to see the Blitzcrank.
Whoa.
Blitzcrank as a blind support is a risk. I would have expected that as an R5, but I mean, I think it still has room. And I think leaving R5 for Toddy is absolutely still an option here, especially if Toddy's able to create these team fights that he created last game. It's definitely scary as Olaf to do that, to have this late game impact that he had. And seeing SG Proton just saying, no, I'm going to pick Renekton in your face is pretty interesting. I think I'm a fan of it. Renekton's definitely not as massively oppressive as he was, but I mean, 4 MR being taken away, unless Toddy's picking something that's magic damage heavy that can deal with it. It doesn't change a whole lot. I mean, Renekton is still very powerful, does pair up with champions that he can create space for. Flag and Drag's easy to land. And I say that and he locks in Gwen. I will eat my words now. I'll go find a shoe.
Go to town on that. Love the Gwen at the very end. I think that is going to lock up Hyperion Gaming's identity quite nicely. They are very squishy, not much of a true tank on their side. Blitzcrank going to kind of have to work as a front line, which is kind of inherent to the champion's identity because you're walking so far forward to look for your cues anyway. But SG Proton, I think, are a little bit more balanced this time around, and I don't want to favor them 2 drafts in a row without good cause, particularly as they did drop game number 1. But if this Lucian gets out ahead, there's a really good chance that Hyperion Gaming just will not be able to come back in time. Gwen's going to take a while to get online as long as this Renekton doesn't feed early. And here's the thing about Renekton, it can sometimes be hard to get leads even though he's so early game oriented. It is incredibly hard to actually feed on this champion.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Now, something that can be problematic for him is just the harsh scaling curve that Gwen possesses again. However, Gwen in the hands of somebody who does play that style can be very oppressive. But we also didn't get to see Il play ISO. Sorry, I said Il. I was thinking of Oriana from last game. No, ISO played this tank matchup, and he played it very well. Like, I thought there were a lot of moments where, I don't know if you agree, but it felt like Toddy was actually losing the lane. So,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so I think ISO being on a more aggressive laning pick might actually benefit him a lot. It might make it hard for Toddy to get out of control in these mid-game fights if he's completely put in the dirt. So Gwen being unable to rotate first onto these plays that are very pick-oriented, Hyperion Gaming needs to get control of these areas that SG had control of for most of that last game. So I think the Blitzcrank has potential to be very effective, but they also need to be first onto these objectives because SG Proton does have one of those click our AoE buttons and jump on top of you and there's nothing you can do about it kind of comps yet again.
Yeah, SG Proton will have the ability to go for some very good early plays off of the Jarvan Renekton if they are able to rotate. Will similarly be able to push forward and get Hyperion into very comfortable positions around neutral objectives. Even if Blitzcrank starts fishing for hooks, there's 3 champions on SG that you absolutely do not want to grab because it could honestly be more of a boon for SG Proton than you'd expect. The ability for Alistar to get a free headbutt into the enemy team to go for a multi-man knockup is going to be great. Jarvan may have an easier catalyst target and or cataclysm target, and obviously Renekton popping dominance probably will be able to sustain through any further CC that comes their way. So SG, I think, are in a good position. Hyperion Gaming, though, have already proven the chops to come back from being the underdog, and perhaps this does mean that draft matters a lot less. And once we get to the 30-minute mark, I'm probably going to be changing my opinions quite a bit anyway.
Yeah, that tends to happen, especially when you don't know if these teams are going to execute on comps exactly the way that you expect them to. A lot of these games do tend to go till that late game mark, 35, 45, even 55 in some case minutes, and at that point we're talking about who at full build hurts the most. And while it seemed securely in Hyperion's possession last game, I'm curious what you think happens in like a full build 55-60 minute situation again.
Oh, Gwen absolutely clobbers literally everybody else on the map, and there's nothing else to talk about in that case. Toddy 2K, already a major carry for Hyperion Gaming from game number 1, and I imagine that if they are enabled to get super fed on a Gwen, late game is going to be no problem for this squad. Sure, Xin Zhao falls off, Jarvan does the exact same. Ahri always going to have utility through their CC, through their pick potential, even if maybe they aren't pumping out the damage. Kind of same thing with Blitzcrank as well. They don't really need to be there for the long term. They just got to get a good Q to start things off. Gwen will take care of the rest. Kaisa also definitely beats out Soul in regards to scaling. Even if they go for that new Umbral Glaive pick, which I think is a little bit less good late, they are able to do a ton.
I wholeheartedly agree. And my final question on draft before we go is, I'm curious because it seemed very impactful. You have 3v3 skirmishes topside and then 4v4 skirmishes bot side. Who do you think rotates into River first, and who do you think has more secure 4v4 and 3v3 potential.
It's interesting, right? I don't think that there's great split push potential on SG Proton's side. Renekton can do that job, but it's not something you see a whole lot of, especially when Gwen is notorious for being able to take towers really fast. So it could be the case that SG Proton goes for the rotations first. Overall and on balance, I don't know how much that actually matters, though, throughout the course of this game, but I could be wrong. Things obviously get shaken up quite a bit here in BOL Gold from game to game. Excited to see that SG Proton are undeterred from trying to go for something a little bit more cute here, a little bit more early game oriented. I think that they could do a lot of really cool stuff, but it is definitely going to be an adjustment period from playing so many passive poke champions in that first round. Let's see if they're able to take it home here and now. Before we throw it over to a quick break though, Dory, we got to give a quick shout out to our other sponsor on the stream. Glitch Energy has been empowering and powering up so many people here in BOL, players, casters, producers alike swear by this stuff, and I highly recommend going to go check them out. If you use Blue Otter League at checkout, you're going to be able to get 20% off your order. That is it for us now, though. Let's see you guys on the other side of this break and in game number 2. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the BOL Gold Division. We're in week number 7 of competition. We're in game number 2 between Hyperion Gaming and SG Proton, and I am so ready for this one. SG on blue side has definitely drafted differently than what we saw in game number 1, and that's kind of odd given that, yes, they did drop the game, but it didn't feel like it was all off the back of the composition messing up. They got 4 dragons in a row. They got that soul. It just didn't really quite come together during team fights as they made a few shaky macro decisions and how they positioned and how they wanted to engage around Elder in particular, because Rogue Crown came in on that rel like a bat out of hell, the Tholo at their back. It was crazy. I highly recommend you guys go check that out. But that's after this game gets over and done with, because this is going to be an exciting one.
I agree. And as we get to our early game, something I didn't really get to talk about was how well I think both teams addressed their problems in the game. Because while it was a very exciting game, it was awesome to watch, and we were very happy with it as the ward goes down onto Cathral's blue buff. They just want to scout that he's not doing a top to bot side 3 camp clear, but it looks like he's going to do a standard clear and actually mirrors in Zhao. So again, just like last game, I expect to see explosive cross-map plays in the early game, and that's honestly what kept last game so even for so long. The things that were different. So, Alf manages to get a hold of the Orianna, favors the Orianna, very strong champion on the patch. The Tholo, having access to something with a little bit more individual agency early, having something with a highly impactful spell like Charm, having a level 6 spike that gives you the Foxfire, or not the Foxfire, but the, whatever the art, I forget what Ahri's ultimate is right now.
Got the Spirit Rush, I believe, on the
Spirit Rush, that's it. It's like Rush or Dash, or it was something like that, but, Seeing the early level 2 coming down from this bot lane, that really awkward positioning for that one caster minion makes it impossible for ISO, or not ISO, but Attila to actually hit level 2 and match. But, I mean, Soul Malone at level 2 is going to be pretty strong either way. Anyways, yeah, so Detholo having access to getting onto the map earlier, I was trying to fish a little bit for that, like, rotational play river skirmish issue that was happening. I think SG got so much control of the river in the early game last game that it made it hard for Detholo to actually utilize his lead, and I think you even said as much.
But I say many things on cast story, so who's to say, right?
You actually, like, you expertly pointed it out that yes, Detholo had a lead, but he had a very hard time rotating onto the map with that lead, so we're looking to see Detholo try to actually acquire that same lead he had last game, but utilize it to impact the map and bring Hyperion to a situation where maybe that gold being so even turns into a gold advantage for the side of Hyperion.
That's true. I think certainly Detholo needs to be able to roam to make the most out of this RE pick early, because it's not going to be quite as effective in team fights as Alf it will be on the Orianna. We've already seen how good that champion is in those situations. As top got a little bit of action. That's Catral just using their flag and drag to get on top of Toddy, but the Gwen has space to just walk it back to the tier 1 tower. There's no dive potential.
Yeah, and I do like to see Jarvan having this early game impact on top lane yet again. Again, highly volatile lane matchup. Renekton very strong. I think while the Gwen does have the scaling advantage, I think Renekton does still assert a lot of power in the early game, and he does possess a lot of innate sustain without having to utilize a resource like mana. Rage makes it pretty easy, and being able to stack Rage is pretty easy in this case. Detholo utilizing his HP as a resource to get that base, just AFK hitting the wave, getting the reset. That's a good that's actually a really good base from Detholo. Very happy with it, and happy with Toddy's ability to get that crash so that he doesn't get frozen on, because ISO's CS lead that he had, that he's now given up, could have been really bad here.
All right, Dory, I think I'm back. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties on my end. Can you guys hear me?
Absolutely can.
All right, awesome. So the current issue is that because my internet went down, I am behind on the game in my client, and also I cannot load your stream, so we're having fun on both.
You cannot load my
point.
stream. How unfortunate is that? Well, play-by-play Dory is here to tell you that Cathro managed to get off a fantastic return play because Toddy actually managed to turn a gank into a 1-for-1. This is a pretty bad situation for the Renekton because the Leeching Leer, I got that right. That item's called Leeching Leer. Getting the early Leeching Leer onto Gwen makes it so she can match that sustain a little bit better. But as we see from the bot side, Rogue Crown has got the wave in that point of no return, so if Soul is not careful, he can absolutely get hooked, and it can become a problem with Luck here, trying to get Vision off for the gank. Soul does catch him out on the ward, so there's not much he can do about it as Nyarko tries to fix his computer and get himself into my stream. He can even spectate.
Yeah, I'm like 20 seconds behind, and I'm seeing spinning squares, so it might be best if we throw it over to a break, unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll probably go to a break. We'll see you guys in just a moment. We're going to pause so you don't miss anything, and we will be right back as soon as we fix his PC.
It's been a while, I've been out on my own. I get a little anxious when you call me on the phone. Somebody said
ready to go for the rest of this game. Thank you, Play-by-Play Dory, for getting us settled on what was going on top lane. Actually, totally missed that fight, but I will be able to go check it later just to see how things are all playing out. Now, you're talking about Leeching Leer on Gwen, that Riftmaker pretty classic to go for early, and we're going to see what kind of lifesteal it's going to do here off those Needlework stacks. It looks like ISO will respect it with the Slice and Dice, just moving back. Toddy with a lot of control over this wave, surprisingly enough, starting to win out on these 1v1s.
And I absolutely appreciate it when a laner is willing to utilize their spells without being too afraid. They're like, oh, I don't want to use my ultimate unless I have lethal, or I don't want to use my ultimate unless I'm running away, right? Or like I'm scared of dying. But sometimes using the ultimate, like using Needlework there in order to get priority and then poke the Renekton down makes it so he doesn't have return threat even with Dominus. So it's a good utilization of your ultimate, and it's a spell that's not got the absolute like worst cooldown to deal with, at least not in this early game. He's not going to need it for the next little while, so it helps him get that crash and prevent another potential freeze. As long as ISO can't freeze, he can't create any CS lead, and he can't get this gold deficit back.
Yeah, and Toddy2K, I think, is perfectly happy using Needlework because it's also not much of a preventative measure against the likes of a Jarvan. You are going to get ulted, you're going to get run down one way or the other. E is a much more important spell, as is your Ghost. I don't really think you're going to be doing too much just kiting with the Needlework, so it makes sense, like you're saying, that they're using it so proactively here. Hyperion Gaming overall, up about 100 gold, but that is just something that's going to ebb and flow throughout a lot of this early game. Right now, both of these teams, like in that first round, are perfectly even, moving to around the 8-minute mark. First Dragon is still up, though. Notably, that is a little bit of a different look from that first round where SG Proton has such high prio on that for most of the game. Now, you have some action between Katral and Locke, who has managed to find out Jarvan inside of that jungle, will be able to force the flash out of that champion, and this is going to be first mover advantage for Hyperion Gaming over to the Rift Herald.
Yeah, and honestly, on this patch, I don't know who's read the smite changes, but unfortunately for Cathrall here, those smite changes only really impacted the epic objectives. Rogue Crown trying to go for that hook there. Pretty close. Rocket Grab trying to land it. Blue side did, in fact, pick Renekton J4. Where was I going? Oh yeah, the smite changes. The guaranteed smite onto the objective that you're going for doesn't apply to blue buff. So unfortunately, Cathrall forgot where his smite button was, and Locke actually had a CS lead, and he had that first evolution, so he was able to execute the blue buff first. And that is just a huge problem, and it leads to this Jarvan getting getting behind if he's not able to translate this first kill he got onto Toddy into something much more significant. Which, as I say that, Toddy's literally using Needlework off cooldown to absolutely use the benefit of that first gank.
Yeah, this is so brutal for the Renekton, who I do think has the saving grace of still being more utile in early team fights than Gwen is, even if Gwen is ahead on gold. The problem is Toddy is going to be doing a lot more than just team fighting. Hyperion Gaming are so happy to have this champion in the side lane, just constantly pushing and pressuring. And Toddy, so far, winning out on these duels means that constantly SG Proton will have to dedicate some amount of time up there for Katral and company, when you really need to be focusing on the map to ensure that Alf is not being out-roamed, to ensure that Soul can use the power spikes of this early game Lucian to great effect. And while we do see the Jarvan show bot, once again, this is just going to be Hyperion backing off, playing respectfully, and that means that Toddy, with vision of Jarvan, can yet again just jam so deep into enemy territory.
And look at that wave control coming out from Soul and Malone. We're going to be able to hold on to this wave just a little bit. It is a cannon wave, so it's a little bit harder to manage, but as long as Attila is just matching autos, he's not going to be able to get this crash completely under. So Soul is going to be able to continually push this this CS lead, and unfortunately for Rogue Crown, hooking Malone is tough, because hooking Malone is pretty much a death sentence for you, and hooking Soul is damn near impossible.
Yep, for sure. And so far, we haven't really seen this Blitzcrank do a ton, unless during the break I missed something, Dory. But
Sure
I
didn't.
really do think that when it becomes a matter of fighting over neutral ground, that's where we can see some more action. Patrol, once again, going to find themselves face-to-face with Locke, who has a 2-level advantage on the Xin Zhao, getting the knock-up against the Jarvan. Multiple low members on SG Proton's side, and that means that Gwen is going to try to pull the trigger. Cataclysm is keeping Locke under the tower, taking a few shots, but they still want to try to walk this forward. Toddy, though, just going to leave the Zinni Z to try to deal with the Renekton alone. Dominus used,
Locke,
flash
buddy.
forward. I think Xin Zhao's going to die to the slice and dice. That was a very confusing play coming out of Hyperion Gaming.
Makes me think that maybe Totolo was not saying that he was coming. Because honestly, Locke just sticking with Toddy and going through their jungle, like, what are they supposed to do? The Jarvan's dead. All they have to do is group as their 3 and walk their way out. But unfortunately, Locke makes a different decision than his 2 teammates. And honestly, let's say we don't have the power of omniscience that we have. Like, yeah, we saw that Alf was missing and Alf could have been rotating if we were perfect. But the flash coming out here from Ahri. I had to look for a second. Yes, the flash coming out from Ahri. Say we don't have the power of omniscience, we think we have a little bit more of a window. We make this dive execute and we think that Ditholo is rotating first. Honestly, if we're communicating, that might have been a call for a play that didn't happen because of a lack of communication of some kind, maybe. But
100%.
Like, yeah, like Locke, Toddy, and Ditholo probably could have gone for a play to also just dive ISO. It's entirely possible that Locke wanted to execute the dive on ISO, especially with that Dominus being used and not having any more resources to survive. And his 2 teammates were just like, nah, I ain't about it. And then he just left him to die.
I'm good. Yeah, it definitely kind of felt like a little bit of leaving Locke out to dry on that one. Maybe it was alternative. Maybe Toddy was like, okay, Locke, you got to walk with me out of here. And Locke was saying, that's crazy. You know that they're going to start collapsing on us from mid lane. I'm just going to walk under a tower and maybe I'll get to safety. You do you. But regardless, it was a little bit of a hiccup in communication, and Hyperion Gaming don't really want to give these opportunities back over to the Renekton to restabilize and start pushing back on Gwen's scaling. That right now is, I think, the core win condition of this team.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Glad to hear it as we see Rogue Crown dedicate their flash to get a hook onto Malone. Attila can use the killer instinct forward, but here comes the culling to cover. And Totolo, you cannot miss those charms, buddy. Malone just walks it out. Attila dies to Soul.
Soul, you're insane!
SG Proton, as Totolo can't even get the kill under the tower. Top side of the map, Dominus used once again. Toddy 2K trying to kill the Renekton, the remnants of their needlework, but they can't do it. Oh, 2-0 play for SG Proton across the map.
And they break even on the gold again. Can you say deja vu? Because that's exactly what's happening this game. These back and forth plays happening in the early game. This absolute constant aggression. Us being forced to switch back and forth between play-by-play and color, depending on whatever crazy crap is happening on the map at any given moment. Is what this game's all about. This is the most fun part of the game, and honestly, man, I don't even know what's going to happen again. But the bright side is this time, Hyperion's not going to give us a minor heart attack by watching 4 dragons get stacked for SG Proton. Now we're going to go straight even for the entire game as a charm goes down.
Good on Totolo to show that they still know how to use that charm button, because I was getting worried in that bot lane for a little bit there, Dory. Hopefully Hyperion Gaming will be able to turn things around, but down those 2 kills, giving, once again, more space for this Renekton to stretch their long croc legs is kind of worrisome. I really needed Toddy 2K to just put this game on lock through the top side to say, hey, we have a 2-0 series. Hyperion Gaming looking like the superior of these 2 teams, the ones deserving of making it to playoffs, but SG have shown signs of life yet again. And while Alf is chased off of this topside river, and this is going to be a Rift Herald grabbed by Red Squad, SG still have a lot going for them.
Oh, and that rocket grab, you pretty much have to predict, right, 1 of 3 ways. As Attila's about to be a dead man walking. There you go. Gonna go down. Soul, pretty easy kill. And the teleport coming down from Alf in response. Yeah, you only have 2 directions to choose when you shoot these skill shots, and unfortunately, you chose wrong there. Even with vision. This Blitzcrank is proving to be a little bit less impactful than I was hoping, but hopefully we get a dive executed here as Rogue makes what I think is a pretty intelligent rotation here.
Yep, and will use the knockup, gets the rocket grab as well to extract the Redectin from under the tower, which will fall here to Shelly Crash. That's a good wombo combo. That's going to be gold. Back over to Hyperion Gaming with the shutdown onto the Gwen in particular. That's fantastic. Now, SG Proton has to scramble to find a way to stop second charge, which they will be incapable of doing so with Locke walking this in.
And can I just talk about how this play is massive, and it is a huge, huge boon for Gwen. But my God, is the overall gold graph still scary again? Locke getting his... I thought it was twice the pinks, twice the vision denial, but he manages to get hit by that Lucian W to cancel his back. But holy crap, the gold league is barely 100. It's not even 100. It's stabilizing as even right before SG's gold goes up another tick. At this point in the game, it is so insanely close because SG managed to get an opposite side play onto bot lane. And Gwen is getting this massive lead, and Gwen is going to become a problem. But both teams are kind of playing towards their composition's win condition pretty well right now, in my opinion. I think both teams have potential, and I think that depending on what happens at the next two dragons, it might spell a little bit more of what the outcome of this game might be. But yet again, 2 games in a row, I have no idea who's going to win.
Ari Sandwiched will be able to get away from the shockwave that was put on top of Cathral, and so Hyperion Gaming actually come out with a little bit of a research advantage there. Yeah, Flash is gone from the Ari, but hopefully this time around they are going to look for a group team fight. They can play off of Rogue and company a bit better here, and from there make it so that the Summoner Spell is a little bit less impactful. What I really want to see though is Hyperion Gaming actually trying to capitalize, make something happen across the map. Toddy is currently dueling with ISO in the top side, but with Dominus still available, this is scary to go for so deep in enemy territory.
Yeah, I am scared. We do see the needlework is up, but Soul's making a good rotation here.
All right, Toddy trying to get out, has to use their E early. Headbutt Pulverize is going to land Cathral, gonna kill Locke, and down goes Alf on the far side of this one. Dotolo gonna actually get the double kill off of the W. We didn't get to see the start of that play, but it's gonna be an even 2-for-2 cross map.
And seeing the wave advantages that are created by it, I would say that Hyperion has a very slight advantage over it as long as Dotolo can get the tower out of this. If it's even, then it's still going to be a little bit favored towards their side because the waves do have an advantage here. But if Attila or Dotolo plan on spending their gold, then they have to push one more wave or else they're going to give up priority and they're going to give up tempo for this dragon in 40 seconds. So I expect to see Attila stay on the map. He does have an item completed, so 1,400 gold is important to be able to spend. It is the difference between your Q evolve and not. But at the same time, if your team is in a good position, you can deal with it. However, that being said, I think my initial intuition is going to be that no, they're not going to contest it, just because their ADC is literally incapable of contesting it right now.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. SG Proton have that power point of Soul currently on the map, and I think that Lucian has not really been fully unleashed just yet. I'm really looking forward to see a team fight, but as you're kind of talking about, I'm hoping that Hyperion don't dedicate themselves to it, because that, I think, is a big strategic misplay at this point in the game. Not only is it a chance at the dragon, but also if multiple people go down for one side or the other, Baron Nashor is very much on the table. Now, it could be the case that Hyperion is actually looking to accelerate the game state and coin flip it, but it's just so risky to go for when you already have the Gwen putting such pressure on the top side. But as you're talking about, they're going for it. Toddy does have teleport, but so does ISO. Going to set this one up first. The Tolo blown up in an instant, and look at the Cataclysm onto 2 members on the back line. ISO go to split the fight even further with the Dominus. Attila goes down, and that is a disaster. Hyperion Gaming, guys, you gotta tune into the stream. We were just talking about how bad of a call this was.
Yeah, it turns out Attila doesn't do any damage without Q evolve. And he also doesn't do any damage if he is stacked on top of with Headbutt Pulverize as well as Cataclysm. So, like you said as well, Nyarko, it's like we're freaking prophets, man. That turns into a Baron for the side of SG Proton here.
My lawyers have informed me that it's probably best if I don't tell them to tune into the stream, as I believe that would be cheating. Also, we guys are on a delay, so don't worry. This isn't something that people can just screen peek off of. But regardless, SG Proton coming out super strong off of that last dragon fight. Now, because they get the big purple worm, barring the crazy steal of all time from Rogue Crown, we are probably looking at a game where SG Proton are going to continue to power spike. They need to use these to their advantages, as Toddy is going to continue to scale up. But for the time being, we know who's in the driver's seat.
No, man, I swear to God, we're in the freaking Matrix.
What makes you say that?
I feel like this has already happened before.
Yeah, I wonder what team got out to a massive lead early on in the first game, but unfortunately, even after assembling multiple buffs, couldn't bring it home.
Yeah. All of you in the chat, 1's in the chat if I'm real, 2's in the chat if this is a simulation, alright? I expect to see results in the next 5 minutes, alright? Alright, cool. So, as we see resets onto the map, this is just the same story as last time. Baron control is good, and I want to see these outer towers go down systematically for SG Proton. They're incredibly strong, the Lucian especially. We have Earth Lucian online with a Baron buff. Lucian is in a uniquely strong position, and as somebody in chat, Super Square, shout out to you, pointed out so well, the team of Hyperion will eventually become hard to kill, but right now, Lucian is able to shred through this team comp incredibly well with the Xin Zhao ultimate down, and with Gwen as immune having a window where it might not be the most effective quite yet.
The big gaping hole right now in Hyperion's composition is the fact that while they do scale, they do not have their scalers online. Attila is exceptionally far behind in this one.
Yeah, Attila is not really in a position where he can do anything here. And honestly, while I prefer AD Kaisa as a personal preference, I don't know how I feel about it this game. Like, you have to do it because you're the most consistent scaling option that's AD, because you have an Ahri and a Gwen on your side. And Xin Zhao is not going to scale particularly well or be able to output, like, consistent DPS. But, like, it's kind of hard to consistently, like, weave in autos and play the game, honestly, into this SG composition as, like, a traditional marksman style gameplay. This is ironically one of the situations where I almost want to, like, focus on proccing my passive as often as possible and layering my damage that way, and being able to use my W as a damage tool prior to a fight. Because as it stands right now, there's no really good way to provide chip damage prior to a fight. So it is a straight up 5v5 unless you make a pick on the side of Hyperion.
We're winding down from this Baron buff, Dory, and this is not the kind of commentary I was expecting to have around a Baron buff, but SG Proton has not really found many good angles to push off of. They get, what, 1 tower through that entire play? They only are up about 2k gold, not even right now. Hyperion Gaming are certainly still very much in this, and what in the world happened? Why do we not see more aggression there?
I want to talk a little bit about how some teams get a little greedy, how some teams commit really hard for this concept of, we have 2 teleports, let's 1-3-1 because we have 2 teleports. They try to assign the jungler to farming their camps. They try to assign bot lane to mid, and you try to assign both teleports to each side lane. In an ideal world, yeah, sure, that's fine. That distributes the most gold to your team in an even way and ensures that you don't miss any of the CS in the lanes. However, that's not really realistic, especially when a game is still as close as it realistically is right now. Typically what you want to try to do is you want to establish what our onus of control is, what part of the jungle we want to establish control over, and what objective we want to get with that lead. With Baron, you're able to effectively apply like a 4-1 or a 3-1 with a staggered jungler around one quadrant or one side of the map that you want to be able to get the towers from. But if you spread yourselves too thin, you're not able to effectively use the Baron the way that you would want to. And that's really the end effect of it, is SG is just trying to get too much. They're trying to use their Baron to do too much, and they're not accomplishing any one goal very well.
Yeah, and we come out of this not really with much of a gold advantage for SG Proton, and I do think that they need to start trying to bump themselves up on that front. If they let Hyperion Gaming sit there and scale, they are going to be able to come back into this, and while this Dragon is going to put a little bit more of a timer on Red Squad, as now this is going to be SG Proton approaching their soul. I don't know, man. It kind of feels like that was their chance to end the game convincingly with their power spikes off at Baron Nashor. They just found nothing. Now, teleport has to be dedicated to the top side of the map to stop Toddy2K from taking this tier 2 tower. But while the shockwave hits Attila, that's still going to be the turret falling.
How often do you see a team get Baron and lose towers?
Yeah, it's very rare that it happens. I will say they're 1-for-1 on towers post that first Baron being taken, Dory. But point well taken here.
Technically,
SG
they didn't
Proton
have. Yeah,
not doing a
I
ton.
guess you're right. Technically, they didn't even have Baron when they lost that one.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have Baron here either, but fact of the matter is, I don't know how they were utilizing wave pushes during the Baron call to not instigate a fight, or at the very least, take a tower. Neither of those things happening are kind of rough to see, as Toddy is going to be engaged upon on the top side, but with Needlework available and Gwen scaling up, they're going to walk away from the 2v1 with the solo kill, make that almost 2, as ISO will be able to turn things back around, but now Locke and Totolo are here to make this overall a positive play for Hyperion Gaming.
And my god, SG, this is starting to look like another Doom scenario. They do need to push that lead. They do have very strong team fighting ultimates, but Gwen can become a problem very soon.
Katral is dead. This is a chance at Baron Nashor for Hyperion Gaming. This could be the nail in the coffin for SG Proton of their chances of making it to playoffs. Now it's up to Hero engaged from Malone, who flashes past the Blitzcrank, gets knocked up, can't find their way onto Attila, gonna have to settle for a Pulverize onto the back line. Soul's still untouched, though, in this fight, doing a ton of damage. Locke gonna try to lock onto them, but Alf will be able to kite them out as well, picking up one more kill. However, now that Malone is gone, there's no front line for Proton to use to try to get back near this Baron Nashor. Soul goes too deep. Shotdown goes over to Rogue, a 2-for-2, but the Baron is stopped.
And another game, another set of explosive fights, and another nearly 30-minute game where we're less than 1,000 gold difference between these two teams. And quite honestly, I think either of these teams, whoever wins, 150% deserve this playoff spot. And honestly, I wish there was a world where both of them could be in playoffs, because these teams are just so exciting to watch right now. As
There's this kind of
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, there's this kind of bob and weave that happens with the last few weeks of BOL, where in the regular season, we start getting these really tight matches where there's so much on the line. But now, because of how seeding works, we're probably going to be right back to a few stomps before we get these exciting action-packed series once again, Dory. So, going to be interesting to see what happens during playoffs and which of these two teams are going to make it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, after spending a season, like, getting close to these players, getting to know these players, I honestly think that all these guys put so much into it and put so much, like, care into what a lot of people deem as just being, like, a beer league, you know? It's like, whatever, we're not pros, but, like, these guys care so much about doing well, putting on a good show, and, like, feeling like they've got this community of players that are really dedicated to playing their absolute best. So I think that, like, the quote-unquote, it's a gold league, quote-unquote, plat, emerald, whatever we are, I honestly think that these teams managed to put on an awesome show, and I think that, I don't know, I don't like seeing teams get knocked out of playoffs. I hate the last week of the regular season, man. I want to keep watching all these teams play, and I think that, honestly, anything can happen in playoffs. And I kind of don't hope that we see stomps. I want to see whichever of these teams win. Just say, you know what, we're here to fight, and we can take it to the best of them. We can take it to Team Conduit. We can take it to Jade. We can take it to DZG. I think that no team is immortal in this league, and I'm just excited to see what happens, as Toddy shows exactly why we're not mortal in this league.
Toddy is in trouble here, don't get me wrong, but Red Squad is trying to rally the troops. They're going to run into Alf, trying to get out of this choke point, uses the first stack of their Needlework passive. Might look for the re-engage here. Colin going to be fired out. Looks like Locke is going to be able to absorb most of it, but that's Crescent Guard gone now. Hyperion Gaming just trying to also gambit a push down into the mid lane. Blastplant is going to put ISO back into contest with Locke. They will just be able to spin their way out of that one. Now, with his tier 3 under siege, SG Proton have got to call Red Squad Squad's bluff. So far, they're successfully pushing off the Blitzcrank and Kaisa, but now it's just a rotation to the bot side as well to take down that tier 2.
And look what happens while they're being forced to chase Gwen all around the map and lose control of this. Attila and Rogue getting control of the mid lane and getting control of this bot side river.
Dory.
Poor Dragon.
That's Jarvan onto the back line. Double knockup gonna come through. Here's the Cataclysm. Renekton unleashed inside of the Death Pit. Rogue goes down to start things off. Control goes golden to buy themselves some time. Lock can't land the killing blow. And now the Croc is unlocked. That's a double for the Renekton as Toddy dashes over the wall to safety, but with the dust settling, that is a 0 for 3 in favor of SG Proton, and they're moving towards Soul.
Nyarko, this is another story of just well-played flanks and well-played fights. And honestly, Hyperion thought they had him dead to rights, didn't they? Toddy going for another fight.
Dead to rights, speaking of which. They're going to just fall to ISO in this 1v1, healing up a wave closer than expected. Renekton gets it, and now only Attila is back alive as we see Blue Squad move over to the Baron. This could be the one that ends it.
Yeah, you want to say Toddy missed one of those needleworks, but honestly, it was just on ISO for timing his slice and dice so fantastically well in that 1v1. Because that honestly could have gone Toddy's favor very easily. And ISO just... I don't think ISO's ready to die. I think ISO can take it to the best of them. And SG putting themselves in a position where they have a solidified advantage this time. They have the second Baron. They have Soul. And honestly, part of why Toddy lost that fight is the stacking Chemtech Drakes, but now they've got Chemtech Soul, and that is a huge problem. Normally not a huge problem, but I mean, a Chemtech Soul actually is pretty advantageous for this team that has a Renekton who wants to use Dominus to fight on these low health bars, who is comfortable playing in this low HP range. And honestly, it's just good that it didn't go to Toddy, because Toddy at the same time is incredibly effective on low HP.
All right, SG Proton need to push. They need to get the towers this time around. That first Baron could be for fighting games. You guaranteed you guys the second one. Now it's time to guarantee a shot at Elder Dragon in less than 4.5 minutes. Dory, if they are able to take an inhibitor here, the game becomes so much harder for Hyperion Gaming, who currently still have quite the nest egg built up. They will not fall that far behind, even with access to a few towers worth of standing gold on SG Proton's side. The real deciding factor is going to be one more big duel around that crucial neutral objective.
I completely agree. I'm expecting to see the mid inhib tower go down and give you clean access to the inhib, and I like to see this rotation here where ISO's tanking the tower, we're taking this tower, but however I want to see them reset, get control of this top side wave, get control of this top side outer tower, because not having priority over that wave makes it very easy to address top and mid together as Hyperion and address that dragon. However, it doesn't solve the problem of SG's team fighting just being far and away better, and Toddy not being able to effectively 1v any number greater than 1.
1vx.
Yeah. As long as he's 1v more than 1, he's doing his job very well, but I'm not really sure if he can do that effectively while his team survives the rest of the fight. Yet. Asterisk.
Yeah, we're kind of having a revolving door dynamic right now in regards to scaling as well, Dory, and that's something to keep an eye out for. Locke has become pretty damn useless at this point in time, unfortunately. That's just how Xin be. Control always has the ability to Cataclysm, which can do a whole lot to help ISO be enabled, and they will prevent the out-kiting of the Renekton that often comes at the 35-minute mark in this game. But I keep bringing my eyes back to Toddy, who's currently messing people up. The problem for Hyperion Gaming is, once again, none of the gold in this game is on Attila, who finds themselves at 0-3, struggling to make it to a third item.
Yeah. I honestly think going back to the drawing board and figuring out how to unlock these kind of ADC picks or Kaisa pick can be done a little bit better in the future. Because this is 2 games in a row that we've kind of put Attila in a losing position, and as much as people are always tempted to just blame the player for these situations, a lot of these situations are caused by superior macro play. or caused by the pressure created by jungle and mid. And Alf has played incredibly well this game. He's managed to keep up with Zolo and at times actually outplay him, out-rotate him on the Orianna. And Sol and Malone, to their own right, Sol and Malone have played tremendously well. They've countered multiple dive attempts, they've countered multiple gank attempts from Locke, and Dotolo's rotations just have not had the same kind of impact that you would expect them to have. Sol and Malone have really been taking control of this game.
Yeah, I do think that it's been kind of a bot gap in this one. Hyperion Gaming, unfortunately, were just unable to get this Kai'Sa ahead, and I feel that Rogue on this Blitzcrank was unable to do enough. Malone is able to really kind of blank a lot of Blitzcrank engages, either by staying in lane or just dragging the Blitzcrank across the map, as Alistar is one of the best roamers in the game. And then when you're left with Sol via Attila 1v1 early, it's always going to go in favor of that Lucian. So there was just kind of no win scenarios down there, and Hyperion needs to start focusing on what they want to do to ensure that Attila can be on par with the likes of Toddy 2K, so that Hyperion Gaming can provide a united front. Right now, this game is very heavily pointed towards the Gwen, towards the Tolo to a degree, and if one of those two goes down, all of a sudden any team fight's going to be so much worse for Red Squad, and that's really a rough position to be in. 45 seconds away from the Dragon. We finally see third item crested by Attila, but they are more than a full chunk of gold down versus Sol, who finds themselves at 4 with a stopwatch to boot.
Yeah, and I definitely advise to keep in mind he does have access to some of his evolutions, so there's definitely potential. But without having early access to the river, they're not going to be able to do anything. So I really like that they got here early and they got set up. They have the Gwen stationed and ready to take prio, but they're unfortunately not able to face it. And as long as we're missing those rocket grabs, we're essentially down half a champion in terms of fighting potential.
And that does mean that Hyperion Gaming has been taking a lot of 4.5v5s than Dory, because I will say that's the other disappointing factor in this lane. Rogue had this respect ban away from them in game number 1. Not really seeing why that was the case, as this Blitzcrank's done literally nothing all game. This time around, they are going to be able to land a really good yoink, but it's onto Malone, and I said, like before, it doesn't matter. Alistar just walks it off with their ultimate, and now Locke is being torn asunder under the Elder Dragon. Sol walks it out with the culling. There's the 5-man ace, and yet again, Elder Dragon will be ignored in one of these games. SG Proton just want to walk this down mid and end it.
Yeah, and SG Proton, I think they're telling me something, because we're about to win on 69,000 gold again. It's probably going to hit about 70, 72, but, you know, I'm going to call it 69. We're going to call it a win here. So that's going to be the indicator. Watch next game for where the gold is going and see which team arrives at the fabled number first. Because I am an adult, and I am a mature adult. Now, as we see, a much more dominant game from SG, managing to close out that lead exactly as intended. Nyarko, we're going to game 3.
And it's such an interesting place to be. Dory, I would say that overall, SG are looking like the stronger team in this series by virtue of that game number 1 being lost by a few smaller hiccups than what Hyperion Gaming then did in game number 2, if that makes sense. So comparatively speaking, this is a 1-1 scoreline that, in my opinion, gives a bit more momentum over to the side that just took down Hyperion Gaming. But the thing is, Hyperion simultaneously probably have learned a lot. They've scouted out the game plan of SG Proton quite well, and now they know that they can't go for this Kai'Sa or Blitzcrank, so we're going to be seeing yet again a switch up in this draft. Very happy for that.
Yeah, and I honestly think that it's kind of telling, because the SG game plan has been repeatedly now to ban Ashe away from Attila. It seems like Attila plays a role that is more focused on setting his team up for success. He doesn't output the kind of damage that you would expect from somebody on 3 items as Kai'Sa. He's not being put in a position to be successful, and it doesn't seem like he's being prioritized very heavily. And the couple times that we saw Xin Zhao head towards his lane, he was kind of in a position where nothing could happen from it. Anti-dive from Alistar Lucian is just so powerful that being able to bounce your wave and put it in a position to receive a gank proper is hard enough as is, let alone the process that would go into even ganking this lane combination. I don't know if they were even ready to deal with it, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Well, we are getting our lobbies assembled for the third and final game of this series and of us broadcasting the regular season. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You guys do not want to miss this next draft. This is going to define so much of what's coming up. We hope to see you there.
It's been a while, I've been out on my own. I get a little anxious when you call me on the phone. Somebody said that it fades away,
friends, and welcome back to the BOL Gold Division for the final game of the regular season that we are broadcasting here. Hyperion Gaming trying to hang on to what was at first a 1-0 lead over SG Proton, but Proton brought it back with game number 2, an early game composition forced into the 35-40 minute territory, yet still they persisted. Still they managed to get themselves Baron Nashers, and they pushed to end the game. Now sitting at 1-1, we're trying to see what Hyperion Gaming can do to bring this back in line. Coming out of the ban phase, things looking very similar though, Dory.
Yeah, at least on one side, SG still focusing on Attila very heavily. In this ban phase, we do not want Jinx to be in these games. She's getting red side bans. Triple ADC ban to start. And I think SG has identified exactly what their game plan is in the early game. And honestly, Hyperion's draft plan, in my opinion, is interesting. I like seeing the Maokai first pick yet again. And I like seeing the jungle targeted bans and the special, like, Recon targeted ban here.
Ivern, the response to Maokai, we got the tree duels in the jungle, but the Sivir ban is interesting coming out of SG Proton. I wonder if this actually implies they want Soul back onto the Ziggs in game number 1. I think one of the reasons why we didn't see that champion fully come alive in that match was that they were denied the ability to hard push as much as we expected out of them. Even with the Hextech Soul, it wasn't enough. Hyperion Gaming were able to hold on, but SG Proton, at the very least for the bot lane, aren't going to go for the Ziggs again. They grab the Lucian first.
And now, I don't really know how I feel about the Lucian. I don't know if Attila plays Misfortune, but this is a good opportunity to take that into it. However, they still haven't banned the Braum, so even though Misfortune is like a specific Lucian issue, Lucian Braum is still a real threat here. So as much as I want to see like a Misfortune and see Attila take it to him and have a lane counter, I think that Caitlyn is still... it's a 1v1 matchup that's not really Caitlyn favored. I do think Caitlyn's in a better spot in the meta right now, and I do think that giving Ditholo access to the Orianna again does mean good things. I do think that the first three, like B1, 2, and 3, are from a compositional standpoint strong. However, I am a little scared for this Caitlyn's life when I see Lucian Braum.
I think that right now, my initial impression of Hyperion Gaming's first 3 picks is that this is another de-emphasization of the bot lane. Attila's just being given as much ranges to play off as possible so that Lucian cannot just roll this champion over early. That was how Soul got ahead in that game number 2. They just kind of slobber knocked Attila on the Kaisa that needed to get up close and personal against the immense burst damage that can come out of this champion. Now, with Caitlyn, it's going to be a much different look. And the benefit might also be that SG Proton might have to respect ban the Lux here with their final knockout of the series, but Hyperion Gaming are now the ones with the ball in their court regarding bans. They have to deal with the fact that Olaf has been taken off the table for Toddy 2K, and the response is going to be denying the Malphite.
Yeah, and honestly, denying the Malphite is going to be effective when your major AD DPS is Caitlyn. A lot of Caitlyn players are liking to go for the lethality style build right now. I personally am like 50-50. I think you can go Eclipse into tanky comps, but I think going Eclipse into Malphite spells Doom. But going for the crit build might take a little too long, especially when you're not really getting more than 2 items. Right now, Attila is struggling at that 2 item point, and that's when Caitlyn's weakest. So trying to put yourself in a situation to give yourself a less harsh down curve on that 2 item. I don't know what the opposite of a power spike is. Power trough?
Power trough, yeah.
That Caitlyn suffers from. That's where you really want to hit your stride. And then seeing a scaling option from SG, seeing the pairing of Lucian with Victor is going to be powerful here. And Victor does, as far as I'm aware, slightly outrange Orianna. However, I do think it's a pretty stale matchup. Victor's scaling is pretty insane too. And the anti-engage from Zyra, though. I like that.
Zyra is a sleeper OP pick in the support role. The problem is, sleeper OP for me is in reference to what I see out of solo queue. It's very easy for teams to coordinate, play around the likes of Zyra when it comes to SG Proton's coordination so far. I don't think this will be out of their wheelhouse to deal with, but Rogue Crown certainly needed a new angle, as I think their blitzcrank in game number 2 was very disappointing. Now, Hyperion Gaming are going to lock things up by getting the Renekton for Toddy 2K this time, and now it's all up to ISO so to wrap up this series with one final selection. Let's see how they're going to deal with what they played to perfection in game number 2.
Yeah, I am excited to see this. This is a very reminiscent set of compositions from the I guess progression that we've seen throughout the series so far. I do like to see SG Proton put a little bit more emphasis on the late game. They've been very powerful in the early game, and I think that utilizing Ivern to pair with the Lucian Braum still gives them that capability. But I do like to see them have options in the event that what happened game 1 happens again. They're not saying we're just going to dumpster you again at that mid-game point where it happened, because early game was still a fiesta. Like, it became SG favored when they made some very intelligent plays around objectives and river control in the mid-game, but it still was very explosive early game, and I think having that late game insurance is going to be valuable for them to close out the series properly.
I would agree with that. The other thing that I have to say about SG Proton is that while that game number 2 was very dominant, and even in that first round, I think that they out-macroed Hyperion Gaming for the majority of the match. There are things that Hyperion Gaming can do to really try to put the clamps onto SG Proton. One of the major concerns that I had for Red Squad's side was that they really struggled to actually use the buffs to the best of their advantage. We saw that in game number 1 with the fact that Hextech Soul went over, and for some reason that didn't just outright win them the game with the Capote composition on top of it all, Dory. And then in the second round, that first Baron was a damp squib, didn't really do a whole lot in regards to dictating the pace of the game. It actually gave more space for Hyperion Gaming to scale up, and they just had waves constantly put into them, so their CS numbers went through the roof during that time period. And while SG eventually brought it back, I want to see them a little bit more locked in to actually playing off of the advantages that they're so capable of getting.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I do think that I'm interested to see Toddy on the Renekton, because I think he's tried very hard to make these advantages in the early game, and while game 1 he kind of struggled and faltered a little bit on the Olaf, he did the opposite of what you'd normally expect from Olaf. He ended up having like the most godlike flank to carry a late game fight, but he actually kind of floundered in the early game. But this time around he's got Renekton, who is a lane bully. He won lane on Gwen, who was supposed to be the scaling advantage. And now we've got ourselves in another situation where, like, yeah, Ornn is the tank, mage, assassin, wizard, what have you. But, like, Renekton is still going to be this lane-dominant champion. The only thing you need to be wary of is whether you get the Bellows Breath to cancel out your W. If you can play around that, like, you can bully Ornn. Ornn doesn't have innate sustain.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely a good point. Ornn can be worn down by a grind and attrition-based playstyle. The problem is, I did kind of hope that if we're going for Renekton with a goal of killing tanks in the top side, you probably cannot put lock onto Maokai as good as the champion is. It's not really going to provide the extra damage necessary to go over the top of Ornn's defenses. So if this becomes a more neutral lane, I'm a little bit worried that SG Proton scaling is just going to get out under Hyperion Gaming, as we're having a similar story play out in the mid. As you kind of talked about earlier, the Tolo was very good on this Orianna, but Victor with a range advantage probably is able to sit back, free farm just a little bit, and then when you compare these two champions come late game, Victor just does so much damage.
Yeah, I think that Victor is going to be a huge problem this game for the side of Hyperion. I would like to see Hyperion use priority in the bot lane, even though Lucian Braum is a terribly scary all-in lane. I think that it doesn't amp Lucian the way that a enchanter does, like the Milio, like the Nami, or even like a Karma. I think that having Braum gives you that all-in potential, but I think Braum also gets kind of pushed off by Zyra, so I do like the Zyra pick here a lot. I think flexing Maokai to support would have also had the same effect. It would have given you an insane amount of disengage. It would have given you brush control in the form of the saplings, and it would have given Caitlyn the ability to perma push. And then it would have given Maokai, instead of being Maokai jungle, you could have taken like a Lilia. If Locke plays Lilia, you could have taken a Diana. You could have taken, I'm not going to see Nidalee in BOL Gold, but Nidalee. Things that synergize very well with Renekton is what I mean here. I do think Maokai, don't get me wrong, I think Maokai does have fantastic setup with Renekton, and I do think that Twisted Advance is a fantastic tool for all of these lanes, but I agree with you. I would have also liked to see the Maokai go elsewhere and then see a more synergistic, progressive AP pick if you were going to go AP.
All in all, though, Dory, what a draft to end this series off on, I must say. There's so many different narratives to come to a head here. Now, we're going to see the early game between these two teams contested more than ever before. We're going to see so much action around neutral objectives. We're going to see the possibility of scaling, especially for SG Proton to move us into the late game. We got fire with fire. We got Hextech versus Hextech mid. We got tree versus tree jungle, man.
We got three trees.
To be a crazy one. We got 3 trees.
Trees this game.
It's real plant power. We got 2 massive mustaches on SG Proton's side. This is going to be an exciting one, everybody. I think it's probably best we throw it over to a quick break, but when we return, it will be for the final game of the regular season here in the BOL Gold Division. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the BOL Gold Division for the final game of the regular season. Hyperion Gaming, returning back to blue side, are looking to make a mark here. Something, anything, to respond to SG Proton who really strutted their stuff in game number 2 and proved that their lead from that first round was no fluke whatsoever. Hyperion Gaming now are drafting early. They're looking for some big plays off of Toddy 2K on this Renekton, but SG Proton, they have inevitability on their side. Soul dominated on Lucian in game number 2, but across the rest of the map, we are looking at a ramp up to the 30-minute mark. Every game so far has gone deep. Now let's see if Alf can make the most of it off this victor.
And I'm absolutely excited to see what these teams are capable of doing in playoffs, whichever one goes, because both teams have shown so far that they are willing and capable of picking compositions that can do a variety of things. That being said, I do like how SG has been playing. I know we were talking about it a little bit at the end of the last game. We do think SG has been playing a little bit more consistently, so I really want to see Attila and Rogue Crown step up this game. I want to see Ditholo work with Locke to create these advantages in both the side lanes, and I want to see Toddy shore up that early game and have a more consistent early game like he had with the Gwen, but on a champion that can utilize the lead a little bit better.
Pretty aggressive play in the bot lane. Ignite going to be burned by Rogue Crown early onto Soul, putting Lucian at a bit of a health disadvantage. I like how this trade went for Hyperion, given that A, they managed to get Soul low versus having Rogue Crown low, which is preferable given that the Lucian doesn't have as many potions as the Zyra does, but also this does mean that Attila will be able to use their range advantage for future nefarious means, maybe trying to set up for a gank after Maokai starts heading their way down. That being said, we also got to keep an eye on the junglers in general. Cathral is up to some shenanigans on the Ivern and moving over to enemy red buff and smiting it away.
Ah yes, the trees have chosen non-violence as First Blood comes down onto Toddy 2K. I just told you, Toddy, we want to see a better lane phase from you.
Yeah, so much for not choosing violence in the jungle because we got action up top. ISO picking up that kill, forcing the teleport out of the Renekton. Feels real bad for Hyperion Gaming. This is where we needed to see more aggression come out of Blue Squad. And unfortunately, Renekton is now down on gold, up on a little bit of CS, but Ornn don't care. Ornn is going to be able to sustain. Ornn just needs the XP to get to those later levels. They need to start buffing up the likes of Soul, Alfie, and company, and so far they're doing that magnificently with that early kill.
Absolutely. ISO making, like, if Renekton is a non-factor in this early game, then I genuinely worry what his impact is going to be. There is a small window where he can be impactful in these skirmishes, but at the same time, like, Ornn is no slouch. Ornn has like a billion forms of CC, and I do think at the very least, the benefit that we're getting, at least thus far, knock on wood, the Caitlyn of Attila is actually showing to have a little bit more control over the lane.
Cathral trying to make the most of this situation. Renekton with no flash available is easier to hit. Treeman going to be able to land the root collar. ISO tries to stay on top of the Renekton, but Toddy does manage to make it out with their spin. So that's something. Hyperion Gaming not going to give up 2 kills in the top lane. And honestly, being only down 1 death, while that is rough, Hyperion Gaming can still make the most of this champion. ISO proved that in game number 2. They were behind the Gwen for quite a bit of the laning phase.
Yeah, absolutely. And look at the mid and bot lane. It's still not a massive difference, but it's enough to the point that Lucian's, SGP Soul's Lucian is pretty down bad. To the point that Hyperion has a gold lead despite giving up First Blood in the top side.
Yeah, Soul's just running around. Where's Senna? Where's my wife? But I don't know if that's what you mean by down bad. Regardless, I agree. Soul not looking quite as hot in this one. The range advantage from Attila definitely something to continue to play off of, as Hyperion Gaming want to, I think, regulate their ability to enter into that bot lane river a little bit better. That was something that SG Proton has been exploiting time and time again. Priority over dragons. This time around, I don't want to see them stacking towards Soul without more of a fight from Hyperion.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Hyperion has the capability, like we were saying. It was kind of a storytelling tactic to point it out, but basically, bot lane and mid lane are going to actually be able to respond this game, so they're not going to have to trade for dragons. They're going to actually have priority over dragons, and that's going to be a first for them. As I say that, SGP gets onto the dragon first anyways.
Womp womp. Yeah, a little bit unfortunate. SG with good timers. I think they also proved that in game number 2 that they really don't need total prio to be able to go for these early objectives. They kind of just use the ebb and flow of Hyperion Gaming's resets and whatnot to their own advantage. And we see that once again. They're going to be up that early Infernal Drake. Not the biggest deal in the world. They are down on gold, and I don't really know if that drag is going to equalize it right now. But I love to see them set up for success with late game scaling on their side. Fights are going to get harder and harder for Hyperion as time goes on, unless they're able to access some crazy team fights and some kills of their own. And by that mark, SG Proton well set up to try to move towards that early soul once again.
Yeah, and honestly, I do actually like the uniquely strong position that Braum is put in. Those of us who like the metagame call Braum a warden. Braum is a warden. His job is to play a tank, but defensively. He wardens his team. He protects them. However, Braum is in this unique position where his frostbite concussive blows? Frostbite? His passive makes it so that he can follow up on engage from what Warren is, a Vanguard, or use the follow-up for the CC off of Ivern to create these positive forward plays, which normally you wouldn't expect from Braum. So I think that Braum has an opportunity to make plays so long as his solo laners are not in a bad position and so long as his jungler lands Q.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Now, we do have Ivern yet again going for a pretty deep play here. I don't think there's much of a way for Hyperion to call this out, particularly with Lock on Lock in the bot lane, trying to find a kill onto Soul, which they may very well get off of the beautiful Bramble smash. No chance to flash even, and that's the start of something great for Hyperion right there.
Yeah, and this is starting to look like a good situation. I did get a shout-out in between games from the one, the only RSN Travis, and I think Attila's cosplaying as him right now because it appears that Caitlyn is the move for him this series.
Yep, Caitlyn, certainly a really good call. It did, like I said before, stabilize this lane a little bit because of the range advantage, and it is going to scale better than Soul. There is going to be that power plateau that you mentioned during the draft phase that I'm a little bit concerned about, but as long as Soul doesn't open up and come out with 3 kills before Caitlyn can crest 3 items, I think we're in okay shape.
And as the ebb and flow of the game, as you were talking about, continues on, it appears that one of the trees chooses violence here and the other one is getting his friends taken out. Good invade from the side of Locke to just keep Malone on his toes, Malone being able to address it incredibly well, and we didn't even get to talk about it, but Toddy did address that that gank attempt very well. He managed, or not gank attempt, actually 1v1 attempt. Again, ISO is applying so much pressure to Toddy. He managed to barely survive by getting a Q onto the entire wave on his way out. So, well played getting out, but my god, he's being put under so much pressure.
And now Rogue Crown's in a lot of trouble as well, and that is going to be Soul firing right back with a kill of their own in the 2v2. Rough stuff. Hyperion Gaming already starting to drop behind on the homework that I gave them. Stop Lucian from hitting 3 kills before Caitlyn gets 3 items. Well, that's one of them off the table.
Yeah, that's problematic. You know that Riot Games flag in the bot lane over by the little corner where it pokes out from the brush? That's the no-no zone. That's where counter-engage, like tanky supports are going to be able to create these opportunities, and that was such a well-landed Q and a well-landed Frostbite proc that it made it really easy for Lucian to secure that kill, and that's exactly what they're looking for to counteract this lead that's been created for Ashe.
Yeah, Malone has been playing really well on this Braum. Sometimes you can see them be a little bit overly passive just because the champion really only has the ability to W into auto or use Q to apply that passive that is so crucial to the lane. But right there and then we see Braum not only proactively set up for kill onto Soul, but now they are going to be able to move up to this topside river, and this is once again priority for a neutral objective over to SG Proton, the scaling team. Not liking this out of Hyperion Gaming right now, even as they are up on gold.
Yeah, and at the very least, I do like that they're using this opportunity to apply pressure to the bot lane wave. However, they're losing the Rift Herald, which is the snowballing opportunity for this bot lane. That would have been something you can use those plates for. And even though Zyra died, she was in a position where she could have rotated for it if we recognized that the next play was for Dragon. I like seeing SG recognize that there is a particular window in that like 7 to 10 minute range where they can go for the Rift Herald, especially with Dragon taken off the table. And they're even going to get the reset and be able to get back into their jungle. But at the same time, like, look at what's happening here with this Orianna and this Maokai. They see the play happen top, and that's been the story of this whole series, Nyarko. Is they're making counter plays on opposite sides of the map and utilizing what happens and not just playing like super passively. Both teams have been playing these early games aggressively and making plays happen.
And let's talk a little bit about this Orianna, because Ildetholo just got a dragon over for their team by setting up that river, pushing Soul and Malone, keeping them under tower. But they're also up a ton of CS versus Alpha. And right now, that has been a deciding factor in the priority that Hyperion has just found around this dragon. They may even be able to go for a big play. Detholo was on a flank, had the ability to use the shockwave, dropped it down, but no follow through from Hyperion. A little bit interesting. I guess they got what they came there for.
Yeah, and as we say that, like, ISO is playing this matchup so well. I don't think I have seen Toddy successfully land a W. Okay, I lied. I just saw him land a W now.
Yeah, Dominus traded for Call of the Forge God in the top lane is also something to keep in mind. It's very hard for ISO to not have disengage, and therefore the trading patterns are just going to favor the Ornn. Now, Toddy has to try to concern themselves a little bit more with matching CS, similar to what Alf needs to do versus the Tolo mid. The problem is, it's not going well for either of those two respective champions.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. But the benefit, I guess, is Alf being like a little bit behind in this situation is totally fine for him. Like, he might not be getting any snowballing going off of getting procs for his passive, but he's staying within like spitting distance of Detholo's lead, and he outscales Detholo slightly. Granted, Orianna is very powerful on this patch, and she's capable of that scaling potential, but I think Orianna is much more effective at like a 2 to 3 item spike than she is at, say, like hyper late game like a Victor would be. But at the same time, like, ISO's getting this lead, right? And like, what's Renekton supposed to do about that?
Yep, it's questions for sure about the utility of this Renekton now. I needed them to absorb some number of stats, you know, in order to really have a good shot of being a disruptive force during teamfights, because they're clearly not getting it done as a solo lane. Detholo is pushed back a little bit, but has the shockwave available once again, and that is going to be Locke getting the kill onto the fellow tree man. And now they're actually going to follow up with an attempted play onto Alf. Good knockback off of the Bramble Smash, and mamma mia, that is Detholo now at another kill set up for their team. As bot side of the map, Soul is able to trade things back. Attila will be able to flash, and although they missed the Q, they do also get one over to Hyperion Gaming. A lot of action in a short amount of time. I believe that is a 1 for 3 in favor of Blue Squad.
Yeah, and this is Hyperion saying, we will not go gently into that good night. Just kidding. Toddy's trying to die here. He goes for the Dominus, and he's gonna slightly escape, but ISO is just too freaking tanky, man.
Watch for Call of the Forge God, not up just yet, but there's a chance that if Renekton backs in a scary spot, they will just die to the Ram call. Now we have the Tolo dead in the mid lane to Katral. Good job controlling the wave there, using their E as a bomb that they just run at Orianna with. And now Ivern's up a kill there. I don't know, man. This is a tight one. Hyperion are up 2K, but scaling for SG Proton is still something to watch out for, and they're getting kills onto core members.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that getting kills onto the Lucian to kind of balance out the lead, Rogue Crown mispositioning very aggressively in these games is problematic. But Attila is going for lethality. Okay. Ghostblade. I have been experimenting with the Ghostblade on Caitlyn now. I think it is pretty good, especially after the changes to Duskblade. I personally, seeing their comp, almost would have rather gone Eclipse, like I said in Champ Select, but I also don't necessarily think it's a bad thing if you go for, like, LDR. Go for the W here, he's not going to, and it's going to turn into just a quick kill for ISO here. Catherall just coming in, getting himself a little assist, and Alf just desperately trying to find anything for his passive right now, and he might find it here.
I like the aggressive leverage of Katral and Alf moving into this topside jungle. They're trying to repel Maokai, get more priority over this top river, as in 45 seconds, we do have another Rift Herald.
Yeah, and having control over this Rift Herald, while normally not that big of a deal, I think is a good way to get this game snowballing in their favor on the side of SG, especially because they are very slowly getting down gold onto at least one key member. At the same time, the gold gap is very much in favor of a champion that is super hard to deal with in the mid game if you're a Caitlyn or an Orianna.
Now, with Attila, once again, in a position where, while they are comfy, Soul is matching them. The question really becomes, what is Lucian going to do now that I think we're going to see a little bit reduced priority coming out of the gate? Looks like so far it's trying to go for kills. Ignite dropped. Soul might be able to walk this off. Malone uses the Glacial Fissure, is able to deny the ace in the hole. But yeah, I guess we're going to have to speculate about this another day, because right now we also have Dragon up, and currently Attila is trying to move for it. Catral's in bush. They don't see them coming. They are going to be pincered by the Daisy. Here comes the Chaos Storm on top of Rogue Crown. Alf gets that kill. Teleports being channeled left, right, and center. Toddy just going to have to zoom away from this massive Red Squad members, now taking control of the pit.
And now they recognize that because of the pick onto Rogue Crown, it's unfortunately going to be a 5v4, and they have to get off of it. But just like in the past, Atholo is getting straight onto that mid lane tower and trying to do something with that Dragon take, with that numbers disadvantage that they're under. Good rotation from the side of the Tolo, but I do think that this is definitely just an SG favored trade. And again, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Every game this series, and the gold lead just never breaches more than like 1 or 2K at most. And it
so
swings.
Evenly matched. Dory, I wish that this was the best of 5. I'm not going to lie. These two teams are neck and neck, and honestly, I want them to go to the distance. They deserve to do so to try to make a claim for that final spot in playoffs. Hyperion Gaming right now have a small advantage on gold like you're talking about, but SG Proton have the scaling, and they are not far behind. One good team fight Red Squad brings us right back.
Yeah, and I don't know if the teams are feeling this pressure. They've got to. They've got to feel how close these games are, because it's absolutely insane, because the games just kind of fall apart around the same time, both games now, where it's just like, it's so close until at the very end when it's not. And granted, SG did snowball it a little bit harder, a little bit last game, but like at the same time, like Hyperion had their moments throughout the game. As a flash comes down in the mid, the Tholo gonna be able to survive that just with having to burn a flash. So let's look to see that punished within the next couple minutes here, as only one tower has been taken so far.
Notably, Orianna managed to trade that with the Ivern, so it's no great shakes on either side. I think that Ivern doesn't necessarily need it, although if they want to be the primary engage, which is kind of the case when you're trying to make a play happen with Victor, yeah, it becomes a little bit more valuable. But I think just Holo being down, it does mean that SG Proton, especially as we're starting to get out of true laning phase into this more kind of dissolved fight scenario, could look for something against the Robot Girl.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, but as we say that, a flash is going to come down and Toddy's going to be forced to use Dominus to escape yet again. I think at this point, Dominus just might as well not even be up, because it's getting burned pretty much off cooldown here from this Renekton.
Hey, now that Dominus basically gives you better resistances. So Toddy's kind of using it like Alistar ult in this scenario to get away from ISO, live through one more round of CC and get to safety. But I agree, it's worrisome to see Hyperion Gaming just doing nothing off of their star carry that has defined the course of these last two games very well. Now, this is a bit of aggression out of Malone to be answered back by Rogue's ultimate. Glacial Fissure still available, not going to be able to get the knockup. Here comes the culling, though. Soul rooted right before they're able to land the killing blow onto Zyra. Alpha's going to be able to clean it up, but Attila does manage to get the revenge shot and will therefore hold this tower.
And that was absolutely the play that Alf needed. However, the issue is he gives up a lot of pressure mid. This is going to be control of the jungle for the side of Hyperion, but at the same time, I don't know as though Alf really cares. Like, he's getting to a point where he's going to become a problem very soon. All he has to do is get stationed in this side lane now and get gold in his pocket. Lucian's going to be able to answer the push, and that's going to be fine. He can grab mid as long as they don't lose inhib tower, they're not under pressure. And Lucian's going to be able to address this and help get mid prio. TP is going to come down in response, and they're going to try to answer this Rift Herald. And Hyperion's looking really good early. Yeah.
Stun onto Shelly. Malone is here,
Ooh,
but
it's
no
not.
smite in sight. Thrall has to be concerned with the mid lane, but yeah, that is Rift Herald still denied by SG Proton. With the tier 1s going down top side, we are well and truly out of the laning phase. Baron Nashor is up, and Dory. Now the mid game is the time for SG to start shining more.
That is absolutely correct. SG is in that mid-game spot. They're getting close to 2 items. Lucia's getting into Earth mode. Alpha is getting close to what's probably either going to be a Death Cap or a Shadow Flame here. And Ivern is Ivern's really strong. This entire top side of SG is going to be the catalyst for amplifying Alf and Soul here, even though Soul hasn't been having the greatest time in lane. However, Attila is coming out of this with a lead. I don't know how I feel about this build, especially since the Ornn is as tanky as he is. However, the Orianna build will be able to kind of deal with that a little bit. Going for the Leandries is going to help a little bit with shredding down that HP stacking from the side of Ornn. But I also am not convinced that it's going to be able to stop Ivern.
10 seconds before the next dragon spawns up. SG Proton once again working proactively to get vision inside of the river. Wards being dropped down, but Hyperion Gaming are sending their own expeditionary force through the choke point, trying to get some amount of vision over this pit so they can contest it. I don't think that SG Proton should be allowed to get to Soul Point here. There's a small gold advantage to Hyperion Gaming. My call is for them to use it.
That's exactly right. And we do have a shout out, somebody mentioning the Serpent's Fang. I started to go into a point and then got distracted as the tower goes down. Toddy avoids the headbutt, so he's going to go into this fight full HP. Looks like we're about to see a straight up 5v5 Narco.
Big shockwave onto the backline, softening up multiple members of SG Proton, but here comes the Call of the Forge God on the flank. ISO hits a triple knockup, and while we see Toddy 2K use all of their health to try to provide a distraction, Red Squad persists and is still trying to make it through this choke point. Katral, with the shields available, gonna move in first. Soul gonna find an access point off of the root collar. Ace in the hole going to land, but Malone blocks it, and now this dragon has been given back over to Red Squad as Alf gets the double-double. And now that is Soul Point attained by Red Team.
And Attila's going to barely just survive there, almost getting hit by the laser,
Oh,
but he's
that's the wrong
pathing
way to
towards
go,
Catherall.
Attila!
No!
This is a shutdown over to Ivern. A delayed ace. Hyperion Gaming lose their footing, stumble, and fall flat on their face.
And this is just so unfortunate that Orianna command Shockwave looked so good to start out this fight, but she had no follow-up. And ISO's flank, this entire series, these top laners have been so influential on the outcome. ISO managed to be the MVP of that fight, managing to lock up 3 players from the side of Hyperion, while Toddy just does not have the output to shred through the defensive capabilities of Catherall.
Gold not fully out of control, but SG Proton definitely got a huge swing off of that last play. Now, they're up about 1,000 gold, but more importantly, ISO is enabled to start giving people those empowered ornaments, and the scaling is well and truly online. Alf getting the double-double in that last fight is actually such a big deal, Dory, because the gold concentration right now is so favored towards that mid laner being able to do stuff. The Tolo really needed to pick up kills in return in order to empower the Shockwave for future fights, but now it kind of feels like that was the best one we're going to see all series because the Orianna has been denied the ability to get items for more damage.
Yeah, the Orianna does be falling off just a little bit. That Victor's range is incredibly effective, and having an ornament already applied to most of the most important members of this team, being level 15 means this entire top side has it. And while Ornn having, you would normally say, oh, I want to put an upgrade onto my carries. giving it to a Moonstone on Ivern, it's one of the most gold efficient ornaments that you can possibly give in the game right now. So this Ivern is really powerful. He's capable of keeping his team alive for so long, and then the capability of applying consistent chip damage from the side of Hyperion just is non-existent yet. They still need items. And honestly, while the Caitlyn build does get effectiveness out of being able to break shields, I don't necessarily think delaying your build for a Serpent's Fang is how you're going to get through this game.
Control with the flash, trying to hit a root color. Will whiff. That is a concerning pattern we're starting to see out of the jungler for SG Proton, but I understand that picks are really high priority right now. If you manage to take down a core member of Hyperion Gaming, SG Proton moves on to the Baron Nashor. Game might just be locked up after that.
Yeah, absolutely. As I was saying, it looked like Caitlyn wasn't able to apply any kind of like relevant DPS in the last fight, and she's not going to be able to for at least 2 more items now because of the choices she's made in her build path. She's going to have to go for a Lord Dominance Regard if she wants even a chance at getting through ISO, and at that point she's also being effectively outranged by Alf because she has to stand still and fight so much to properly apply damage using the lethality build. So she's going to be forced into this position where she's going to have to play for auto attacks, but she can't do so for a while because of her build. So I think Sol is in a position where Sol can play these team fights a little bit more aggro, and Attila has to play more setup. Attila needs to use his priority in order to deny access to the river and utilize his traps as best as he can to cut off chokes.
Let's also talk about the fact that ISO is level 16. That is 3 upgraded items done very quickly in this game. By far and away, the stat check champ in this game has become the most fed, and that is very worrisome. 3-0-1 currently on ISO, and I don't really see a way that Hyperion Gaming ever kills them without wiping everybody else on SG Proton first.
And at this point, I love that the play that they're deciding to go for. If they're going to contest this from Hyperion, it is definitely a losing scenario because they're just saying, we fight you better, we always win the fight, come fight us.
Well, Toddy may call their bluff. He has a teleport available, decides to instead continue to push this bot side of the map. Alpha and company doing a good job zoning, but the Baron's resetting. SG Proton, unfortunately, waffling a little bit now, looking for a pick. They might find it onto Dotolo, and here comes the Zyra ult over the wall. Unfortunately, doesn't zone anybody out. Redemption Drop is going to keep Red Squad healthy, but now this is a tower going down at the very least, if not more. A wave is still at the Renekton's back, so we got to watch that bot side, as Caitlyn is also trying to make short work of mid lane. Rogue going to be forced to flash away, and now Locke is isolated. Red Squad just chasing down the tree man. Well, the other tree man. You know what I'm talking about.
The tree-on-tree violence. Down goes the Maokai. It's going to be slow, but he is going to be taken down. He manages to get the flash off and escape. Malone trying to follow the flash, but isn't going to be able to do anything with it. And tree-on-tree violence ends in just a little bit of maiming. No murders today.
That's 2 towers mid blown up by Hyperion Gaming. I gotta say, that gamble from SG Proton did not pay off, Dory. They dropped the gold lead as minute as it was from before, but the only good news to come from this is the fact that Dotolo is still dead. This might be a chance at Soul. We see the teleport into the bot lane. Orianna gonna come in, but Renekton had to take the reset. They're gonna be very delayed to get to this neutral objective. Dotolo looking for something over the wall, trying to find an angle with the shockwave. They will not land it now. Ocean Soul onto SG Proton. They still come out, even with missteps, ahead on that count.
And just imagine trying to fight through an Ocean Soul level 16 Ornn with a pocket Ivern. At this point, they don't even need to throw Ivern's abilities onto Lucian, because all Ivern has to do is throw up Daisy, and you've got 2 of the fattest bastards in the way. Caitlyn can't do anything. Orianna can't do anything. Lord knows Toddy can't do anything in this situation. I don't know what Hyperion needs to do, but somehow they still keep finding something. They managed to make a trade for towers that absolutely defies the logic of the position they're in this game, because they are still up gold despite visibly being down everything relevant in the game.
You know what? I remember a game, though, where SG Proton got to Soul, and they did not win it, though.
Absolutely. That's why I'm concerned. They're 1,000 gold down despite being at Ocean Soul with their hyper-scaling mid laner and hyper-scaling top huge and Ivern Soul, and I'm still not convinced it's over. Like, yes, on paper it should be over, but I don't know. Toddy's going to find something random and make magic happen. Attila is somehow doing damage despite all logic from his build saying he shouldn't be. at least not to the Ornn, to the front line who he's hitting, but somehow they're managing to find targets and find these like trades that work out for them. So maybe we'll hit 6 items and just throw our hands up and say, who knows what's going to happen.
Well, LDR is completed, so Attila's going to try to do a bit more damage to ISO. The problem is, this Ornn is cresting towards that level 18 mark, going to be nearly unkillable for any future fights. Toddy is certainly trying their damnedest, though. They themselves have managed to find a few waves and lanes to start to bring back that XP deficit. The problem is, they currently cannot take the duels. That's going to have to come later, Renekton, if ever. Now, also, I do want to note that 1-3-1, Orianna still is richer than Alf on this 5-1 Victor. That is wild.
Yeah, honestly, Ditholo is doing a fantastic job of being present for these tower takes and being present to hit CS as much as possible. His ability to like be in lanes, being the proper lane, and collect resources throughout this series has been very impressive in my opinion. So I think that might be part of the game changer for them, because at this point, like, we want to say this is SG's game to lose, but like the gold graph doesn't tell us that.
It may soon tell us one way or the other, though, Dory. We still have a Baron Nashor hanging like a sword of Damocles above this entire game. And SG Proton so far, gambited once for it, did not get it. This could be the opportunity, though, as even with Dominus available, Toddy is going to be shut down by the Ornn solo Bolo.
Yeah, and I mean, Jack Show plus Bramble Vest plus Sunfire Aegis just spells doom. Even with the Bork Gore Drinker, there's nothing a Renekton's going to do to an Ornn at this point. He's got Ornamented Jack Show. I don't even remember what it's called, but like, it's pretty impossible to play through this team. It's really on SG to throw now. So as we see Locke trying to go in for the hero save, it's on 7k on the Baron. I don't necessarily think he's going to be able to get anything done here.
Ditholo coming in, looking for a shockwave attempt. Won't be able to get it off that ball positioning, and unfortunately, Maokai's pulled the trigger too early. Alf gonna be able to pick that up. There's the shockwave we're talking about. Zyra trying to wombo combo it, but the redemption is gonna keep everybody topped up, and now SG Proton have a wide berth to take this Baron Nashor with 3 members of Blue Squad dead.
And this spells doom. This time, they are not going to throw the game. They have late game reassurance in the form of the Ornn and the Victor. Ditholo being forced to flash away, and this Baron may be quite a bit beefier now this patch at 32 minutes, but it is still going to go down to the side of SG. And that is finally a relevant gold lead for SG Proton for this massively huge, decisive Game 3 for who's going to playoffs.
And if there's any indication for how close this series has been, guys, we are getting excited over a 2k gold lead at 32 minutes. Now, obviously, the Dragon Soul is going to be another thing that really underpins how strong SG Proton is currently, but the fact of the matter is this has been a wildly competitive series. Hyperion Gaming also still do have a chance. We've seen this scenario play out in that first round, and it just didn't matter. Now, scaling is worse for Hyperion this time, but I believe in miracles.
Yeah, I agree completely, and I keep ignoring it and not bringing it up because he's been playing kind of questionably, is Rogue Crown. Like, if Rogue Crown can actually get on some form of relevant gold that makes him do something, like, Zyra has the capability of stalling out these fights and creating that chip damage that they need to get through the front line. But at this time, like, Lethality Caitlyn just isn't going to be strong enough to get through an Ocean Soul. The effective gold, like you were saying, the effective gold from having Soul isn't going to be reflected in the gold graph. It's going to be affected in the EHP that they get from it. It's essentially like getting like, another Warmog's passive, but just giving it to everybody. And it's just like, it's makes it incredibly difficult to actually play this game if you are the Caitlyn, if you are the Orianna, and I'm interested to see what their solution to this problem is.
Solutions have to come fast here, Dory. SG Proton and Hyperion Gaming both now have to set up for the Elder Dragon spawning in 5 seconds. Ditholo going to lead a little bit of a charge towards that river. We do have a ward in the Pixel Bush, though, so Red Squad knows what's up. SG Proton, very early in this one, going to proactively start up this dragon. This could be a concern. This is actually what lost the fight around this neutral objective in game number 1. Toddy trying to find a flank. ISO going to be able to fend them off. Dragon going to about half health. Hyperion Gaming need to find an angle. They need to find an angle in. Nature's Grasp going to be activated. Toddy pops the dominance, just going to try to run straight by ISO. Knockup goes down onto the Croc as the rest of the team is held at bay
Oh, we see
by
the
the
ultimate.
Glacial Fissure. Malone is going to be popped, but here comes the ultimate from Soul. The culling, softening up multiple blue squad members as ISO will forge their way forward. Now Soul has picked up a second one. Oriana goes down. Locke will follow. And SG Proton, post Malone, will pick up the Elder Dragon and move on to a victory lap in this game.
Yeah, if this isn't the end of the game, it sure as hell is going to be one of the checklist items to get to it, because Attila cannot stand here and try to reasonably, because look at ISO just eat up these tower shots. He doesn't care. He's eating it up like candy, my guy. We're getting close to Thanksgiving. ISO gets to eat early. Those of you in Canada actually got to celebrate your Thanksgiving recently. And ISO's eating good. Don't know if he's from there, but he looks like he's eating pretty good this game.
Now, ISO 100% American, big tanky boy, moving into the base. Really hungry, looking forward to our own Thanksgiving. I think that's what the real big deal here is. Hyperion Gaming trying to find some kind of delay tactic to keep themselves alive in this series, keep themselves alive in the BOL Gold Division. Toddy 2K once again desperate to find a flank, but they're zoned so beautifully by Alf on the Victor. And now with Daisy also taking some of the punishment their way, Hyperion Gaming are struggling to find an angle. The Tolo goes forward, tries to find a shockwave. All they are met with are the light blasts from Soul's guns. And now with another wave at their back, once again, SG Proton are pushing towards the enemy base.
And Hyperion Gaming are put on the back foot. What are they supposed to do here? They just do not have the income to get to the items they need to get through this Orin, through this Braum, and they can't even reach the Victor. So at this point, it's just a matter of shoring up the game for SG Proton and stamping their ticket to playoffs, because if there was a game to make a statement, it was definitely this one.
They're just going to clean up the rest of the base at this point. Even if Elder Dragon doesn't straight up win them the game, literally, fact of the matter is, it's probably going to secure themselves at least another inhibitor, and that means that with a minute 30 ticking away on the next Baron Nashor, Hyperion Gaming could just be overrun by Baroned up super minions pouring into their base, and their wave clear this game isn't nearly as good as what we've seen in the past.
And we're going to get to a little bit of a lull period as they set up for what is going to be the decisive final play of the game. They have Elder Drake in their arsenal still for at least a little bit longer. Are they going to look for a play immediately? I don't think so. It's double inhib. The safest play here is to just kill Toddy when he ints into the Fnatic Brush.
Oh, it is so sad to see that out of Toddy. I don't think it changes much of anything. SG will not be able to just push bot to end the game with the Renekton down, so they will take the resets here, setting up for the Baron Nashor. But you gotta feel for Toddy 2K becoming Tilty 2K in this game. They were pinging themselves after they died the last time, trying to be a distraction as SG Proton was pushing into the base. Now dying again too, as you say, the Fnatic Rush there, Dory, is so awkward, because that means there's no realistic defense that Hyperion Gaming can mount around this Baron. They are just going to have to try to ride this out with what little wave clear they have. Let's see if they could do it.
And it's honestly just a checklist at this point. This, someone should fact check us. Zax might be able to do so. He's in the chat right now. Is this the biggest gold lead that we've seen this entire series?
Definitely damn close to it, Dory. You know, I too am thinking about fat chests right now, particularly the beefy pecs of Ornn, because my god, is ISO insanely tanky at this point in time, man.
Ornn is absolutely the biggest boy. We've got our Freljord brothers just throwing up shields, throwing their bodies into the wind, and making it so this unfortunate lethality Caitlyn is given a bad rap. I am a proponent of lethality Caitlyn, and I'm sure wherever XFSN Saber is right now, he is rolling over, because he's got to be depressed about this Caitlyn situation. The issue, I hate to use the power of hindsight to make statements, but if this Caitlyn is at 4 items right now and she's going the crit build, does she have the capability to hurt anybody? Probably not, but at least she's approaching that point. 6 items on this build just isn't going to do anything. 6 items on crit might actually be able to carry a game.
Yeah, I think that you might be able to answer back against other champions that aren't Braum and Ornn, but these two champions just bully into enemy territory. Call of Forth God going to be fired off, putting the brittle passive onto multiple people. Once again, that redemption doing so much healing for SG Proton to continue the siege on the top side of the map. Malone trying to forge a way forward, but it's really ISO who has broken open the dam with Soul at their back. They're moving on to the Nexus turrets. There's one more fight in Hyperion Gaming. They're trying to find Soul. Toddy 2K spins on top of them, will pick it up, still has the ability to find some kind of distracting play on the back end, but Malone is going to initiate with the stun, following through on control, landing that root collar, and now without the top laner available, Hyperion Gaming have to hand off aggro, trying to defend these last two turrets. Locke gonna be able to back off with their flash, Ace in the hole, fire it off, Malone absorbs it beautifully, and now the Nexus is being focused. No more towers between them and victory here in game number 3. SG Proton will move on to playoffs.
SG Proton finishing off the game when it counts the most. Gonna be able to take this last game from here. And I just need to fix the client. There we go. Fade over to our wonderful faces again. As wonderful as you could say either of our faces are, buddy. Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. This is the end of probably the most back and forth series I have seen in BOL Gold this entire season, and by far my favorite one to cast this season. It's not even over.
It's been such an exciting series. Congratulations to SG Proton, though, for finding themselves advantages 3 games running, and beyond that, getting the dub in 2 of them. Hyperion Gaming put up such a fight, but unfortunately, I think that their issues really came to a head here in the final round, where SG were perhaps the most dominant we've seen. Even pre-Elder being taken down, they were in winning positions, Dory. We were desperately trying to grasp at straws, trying to find the angle for Hyperion Gaming to get back into it. And Hyperion, to their credit, did not give up the ghost, but unfortunately, SG Proton knew what they needed to do. They played by the book. They got Barons, they got Elders. It was rough.
That's exactly right. And it does feel really bad at this point because, as we were saying, this was to make playoffs. These teams were tied for 5th place at this point, and it was literally coming down to this series. And honestly, Hyperion put on a show, and I'm so excited to see them in BOL Gold in the future because these guys performed admirably, and they played one hell of a series. But SGP just proving that they're one step ahead and really punching their ticket in a commanding way in this 3rd game.
All right, well, congratulations once again to SG Proton. Hyperion Gaming, like you're talking about, Dory, definitely needs to get back here in BOL Gold because next season, I think they have a real shot at taking things deeper. Unfortunately, they met their match here in week number 7 of competition. BOL Gold is going to be returning for more broadcasts coming up, and these are going to be best of 5s from now on as we're moving to playoffs, guys. It's playoff season, woo! But before that, before I lose even more sleep, we do have a few more leagues to go through this week. So continue to tune in, drop a follow if you haven't, because we broadcast basically every single day of the week. I myself am going to be back on Saturday for the Diamond League, but we also got things happening in IBS tomorrow. That's going to be a wild one for sure. Keep an eye out for that. Dory, are you on that?
Nope. I'm CB Queensguard's coach, but you know.
I see.
It is close. IBS is also very exciting right now. I don't know who's going to top this because this was an awesome night of games. BOL Masters is playing their finals on Monday. It seems like the season's flown by so fast.
Yeah, for sure. It was an honor being on BOL Masters for one of those games this week alongside Thousand Eyes. So make sure to go follow them on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter, by the way. I believe that our addresses are below. And like I said before, make sure that you guys keep up with BOL. This has been one of the best seasons yet.
Mine's not actually Dory K. Don't follow me.
Don't
follow me. I'm sorry.
Does someone else have the address or something? Is someone else Dory K?
No.
Oh, you just don't have it as it. I see how it.
No, I dropped the E for a special occasion.
Oh, yes, I forgot about the memes from earlier on in the night. Whatever, I'm still NarcoCast, so make sure to follow me at the very least. I definitely need the interaction. But with all that in mind, I think it's about time we bring it over to an end for the night. We got a raid ahead of us, so make sure to stay tuned, join in on that for the channel points and everything. And stick around, because I'm pretty sure it's a sick broadcast if Dory speaks so highly about it. But regardless, shout out to our sponsors once again, Coachify GG alongside Glitch Energy. Couldn't do this without them, and couldn't do this without you guys. So everybody, have a good night.